Chapter 1. Legend has it that the Sky-Sea realm was the holy land of martial arts, where thousands of saints came to pay homage. Legend has it that a peerless sword beam tore through the void, separating the Sky-Sea realm from the divine continent. Legend has it that the war between the divine continent's humans and demons ended in the Sky-Sea realm. Countless legends caused the Sky-Sea realm to be shrouded in a mysterious veil. And now, the Sky-Sea realm's martial arts had declined, becoming a land of demonic beasts. Humans were constantly fighting with demonic beasts. Countless humans became delicacies in the mouths of demonic beasts, and powerful warriors took it upon themselves to resist the invasion of demonic beasts. The 100,000 mountains stretched for millions of miles. This was the land of demonic beasts, a forbidden land for humans. Although demonic beasts roamed freely in the 100,000 mountains, there were also warriors who came here to train. Of course, these human warriors hunted demonic beasts in the periphery of the 100,000 mountains, not daring to venture deep. However, at the peak of the 100,000 mountains, there were sounds of reading from time to time. 10 years was like a day, rain or shine, never stopping. There is a house of gold in the book. There is a yin ryu in the book. Sir, who is better, the house of gold or yin ryu? At the peak of the mountain, a 15-year-old youth sat cross-legged on a boulder. At this moment, the youth put down the book in his hand and turned to look at the old man in the thatched hut not far away. The youth's pale green clothes were clearly a size too small. He had ordinary looks, but did not lose his composure. He was quiet and peaceful, and his clear eyes were like the bright stars in the night sky. Of course the house of gold is better. Didn't you see where we live? It is not sheltered from the cold or the heat, nor is it sheltered from the wind and rain. Remember, women are ferocious beasts. Avoid them as much as possible. The old man was already 70 years old, like the setting sun in the west. Sir, I have never seen the house of gold, nor have I seen yin ryu. What good is reading for me? The youth's tone was still calm as he looked curiously at the old man. For as long as he could remember, he had been living here with his teacher. Other than some ordinary beasts, he had never seen any other living creatures. What he did every day was to read piles of ancient books and scrolls. Other than that, he would sit in meditation. Reading can cultivate one's body and mind. Not only do you have to read now, but also in the future. After today, you can leave and go to where you should go. The old man's face a benevolent smile. Leave? The youth was stunned by the old man's words. That's right. You should leave. The old man nodded. Where should I go? The young man was not used to it. In his world, there is only this towering mountain peak, as well as the boundless mountain range. Occasionally, the sounds of terrifying demonic beasts would come from the mountain range. He had never thought of leaving this place, nor did he know where he should go after leaving this place. Go where you belong. The old man smiled mysteriously and expectantly. Where I should go? Mister, there are demonic beasts everywhere. Can I get out? The young man was puzzled. Yes. Remember, the outside world will always be more terrifying than the demonic beasts in the mountain range. It's a dangerous world, a world where the strong are respected. If you can't become the strongest, you can only be trampled on. The old man looked at the young man and said seriously, because this would be his last teaching to the youth. The strongest? I understand. The young man answered half-heartedly. His name was Linyi. According to the teacher, he was picked up and was 15 years old this year. Let me tell you about the outside world. 10,000 miles away from here, there's a human country called the Yunshui Kingdom. The place where we are is also part of the Yunshui Kingdom. This is also one of the places you have to go. Humans are no longer as glorious as before. There are only 72 cities left in the Yunshui Kingdom. All humans can only live in the cities and rely on the strong and the city walls to resist the demonic beasts. Sigh. First there were demons, then there were demonic beasts. The old man said slowly and couldn't help but sigh in the end. Mister, are you coming with me? Linyi was curious about the outside world, but he was reluctant to leave this place. Moreover, he could tell from the teacher's tone that he was leaving alone this time. Mister, you're old. There's no need to go out. You have to go to the Yunshui Kingdom's Luo family as soon as possible. Otherwise, your wife would have been abducted by someone else. The old man said with a smile. My wife. Mister, when did I have a wife? Lin Yu was stunned. The only person he had ever met was his teacher. He had never left the mountain peak. How could he have a wife? Take this. The old man took out a palm-sized wooden box and a book-sized animal skin from a box in the thatched hut. He walked towards Lin Yi and handed the two items to Lin Yi. What's this? Lin Yi looked at the wooden box and the animal skin in confusion. You're going to the Yunshui Kingdom's Luo family. Give these two items to the head of the Luo family. Tell him that you want to exchange these two items for two items from the Luo family. One is the Luo Water Sutra, and the other is Luo Bingyue, your wife. The old man said slowly, Mister, are you sure you're not joking? Use these two items to exchange for the Luo family's Luo Water Sutra and Luo Bingyue. Since she's my wife, why should I exchange these items for them? Besides, didn't you say that I don't have a martial soul? What's the use of the Luo Water Sutra? Lin Yi looked helplessly at the wooden box and animal skin in his hands and said, he knew from the old man that he was just an ordinary person without a martial soul. Otherwise, why didn't he practice powerful martial techniques and cultivation techniques at the age of 15? Other people don't have a martial soul bloodline. Naturally, they can't practice martial techniques. Even if they practice martial techniques, it's useless. In this world, all animals have a bloodline and martial soul. It's just a matter of strength. However, you don't have a martial soul. You're like a blank piece of paper. However, you can practice the 3,000 heavenly Tao and possess terrifying divine sense. You might be able to break the rule that ordinary people can't practice martial techniques. Besides, you've never practiced any cultivation techniques or martial techniques. How do you know that you can't practice them? The old man shook his head and glanced at Lin Yi. He knew that Lin Yi didn't have a martial soul or a cultivation realm. He also knew that Lin Yi's cultivation was even more heaven-defying than those martial techniques and cultivation techniques. All right then, when the time comes, I'll bring back Luo Bingyue and the Luo Water Sutra. Lin Yi understood the old man's words, but he didn't care. In his heart, he just needed to leave this place and complete the mission according to Mister's instructions. Remember, don't let anyone know your secret. Go. The old man nodded and said. As his voice fell, the space at the peak of the mountain twisted strangely. A ray of light shrouded Lin Yi. The sudden change shocked Lin Yi. Everything was beyond his imagination. By the time he reacted, the ray of light had already shrouded him. It tore through space and disappeared. Reincarnation, reincarnation, rebirth. The old man muttered to himself as he watched Lin Yi disappear into the distance. At the same time, the old man's body turned into a peerless sword ray and gradually disappeared from the peak of the mountain. The peak of the mountain was empty. There was no young man, no old man. Chapter 2. The Cloud Water City spanned 5,000 miles from north to south and 3,000 miles from east to west. It was the capital of the Yunshui Kingdom, the center of wealth and power. It was the most prosperous city in the country. It was a paradise and holy land for martial artists. Countless martial artists yearned to come here. It was one of the safest cities in the 72 cities of the Yunshui Kingdom. It was home to the strongest army and powerful martial artists. Beasts couldn't do anything to the Cloud Water City. It was said that the population of the Cloud Water City had reached 1 billion. In the past few days, the Cloud Water City had become more lively than usual. Countless geniuses and powerful martial artists from the 72 cities of the Yunshui Kingdom had flocked to the city, causing it to be overcrowded. There must be a demon behind this anomaly. Indeed, a demon had appeared in the Cloud Water City. However, it wasn't a demon. It was a human genius. 10 days ago, Luo Bingyue, the daughter of the head of the Luo family, one of the top 10 families in the Cloud Water City, had awakened the body of ice. The news shocked the entire Cloud Water City and even the entire Yunshui Kingdom. What was the body of ice? The body of ice was an emperor body. It was a rare super genius in the Yunshui kingdom. Everyone was born with a bloodline and martial spirit, but the strength of each person's bloodline and martial spirit was different. Those with a strong bloodline and martial spirit would be able to cultivate at a tremendous speed and achieve twice the result with half the effort. Those with a weak bloodline and martial spirit would only be able to achieve half the result with twice the effort. The bloodline and martial soul were divided into 9 grades: spiritual pulse, emperor body, saint body, and the legendary divine body. Grade 1 spiritual pulse was the lowest grade, but it was still possible to become a powerful martial artist. Grade 9 was the highest grade. Those who had a grade 9 spiritual pulse were definitely the top geniuses in the Yunshui kingdom. As for the emperor body, it was a super genius in the Yunshui kingdom. At the age of 16, she had awakened the high-grade emperor body and became the top genius of the Luo family. Even in the entire Yunshui kingdom, she was a super genius. Luo Bingyue was as beautiful as an ice goddess. She was the goddess in the hearts of countless geniuses. Now that she had the ice body and the background of the Luo family, it could be said that she was one of the most dazzling women in the entire Yunshui kingdom. Countless geniuses came to Yunshui City for 2 reasons. Firstly, they admired Luo Bingyue. Secondly, they wanted to join the 4 major academies of the Yunshui kingdom. In the face of all the geniuses and experts of the kingdom, the royal palace and the 4 great academies came out and announced that they would be recruiting disciples 1 month in advance. At that time, the 4 great academies would select the best geniuses from the various cities. Congratulations, Brother Luo. Congratulations, Yinyang. Congratulations, Brother Luo. Luo province was bustling with people. The people who entered and left Luo province were all famous people in the Yunshui kingdom. Although the 4 great academies and the royal palace did not allow experts and geniuses to disturb Luo province, some important figures of the kingdom visited Luo province during this time to congratulate the patriarch of Luo province, Luo Yunyan. After all, a super genius with the emperor body would definitely be nurtured by the Royal Academy. When he grew up, his future would be limitless. Patriarch, there's a young man outside who wants to see you. After Patriarch Luo Yunyan personally sent off the experts of the kingdom's major families, a Luo family guard came up to Luo Yunyan and whispered to him. The guard had a strange expression on his face. Young man, isn't it not time for the 4 great academies to recruit disciples? When Luo Yunyan heard that a young man wanted to see him, he was immediately displeased. He was the patriarch of one of the 10 great families of Yunshui City. His status was extremely respected. If anyone could see him as they wished, what did this young man think he was? He thought that this young man was a genius from the 72 cities. Patriarch, this young man, said that the 9th young lady is his wife. The guard's expression became even stranger. If he wasn't in front of the patriarch, he would have laughed out loud. When a young man had come to Luo province and said that he wanted to see the patriarch of the Luo family and that Luo Bingyue was his wife, the guards had laughed so hard that their stomachs hurt. The guards had almost thought that the young man was crazy and chased him away. What? Nonsense! When Luo Yunyan heard the guard's words, he couldn't help but be stunned. Immediately, his entire body emitted a trace of killing intent. Given his cultivation, temperament, and status, there were very few things that could anger him. This time, he was really angry and wanted to kill. Someone was making fun of the Luo family and disgusting the Luo family. However, this trace of killing intent was fleeting. He raised his hand and signaled for the guard to bring the young man in, concealing his killing intent without leaving a trace. Yes, when the guard received Luo Yunyang's signal, he bowed and retreated. Soon, the guard brought a young man into Luo Yunyang's line of sight. When he saw the young man, Luo Yunyang's expression changed. The young man looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. His appearance was unremarkable, and his green clothes were a size too small. He had no cultivation at all. He was just an ordinary person without any cultivation. This further confirmed the fact that someone was deliberately making fun of the Luo family. Greetings, patriarch of the Luo family. The young man walked forward step by step, neither in a hurry nor in a hurry. When he was 10 meters away from Luo Yunyang, he stopped and bowed. His tone was neither servile nor overbearing and was extremely calm. It was as if the person in front of him wasn't the patriarch of a large family, but an ordinary person. "Who are you? Who ordered you to do this?" Luo Yunyang couldn't help but nod at the young man's temperament. This young man, who had been ordered to make fun of the Luo family, had no cultivation and was unremarkable in appearance. However, he had a scholarly aura that made him pleasing to the eye. "Ordered? What do you mean by ordered?" Sir said that I would like to use 2 things in exchange for 2 things from the Luo family. If Sir's request is excessive, I would like to apologize to the Luo family on behalf of Sir. However, I have to complete the task Sir assigned to me. The young man was Lin Yi, who had come from the 100,000 mountain range. That beam of light had torn through the void and taken him away from the 100,000 mountain range. Although he had left the 100,000 mountain range, there were still countless demon beasts outside that had nearly eaten him several times. After 10 days of traveling, he had finally arrived at the Cloudwater Great City. This was the first time he had come to the human world, so he found this bustling world extremely novel. "Who is your sir? What do you want in exchange for the Luo family's things?" Luo Yunyang was about to explode. He was the head of one of the 10 great families. How revered was his status? Even a monarch of the Yinshui kingdom had to treat him with respect. However, this young man in front of him seemed refined and courteous, yet he was very stubborn. If it hadn't been for his current status, he would have beaten this young man up. Sir said that I would like to use these 2 things in exchange for 2 things from the Luo family. One is the Luo water true scripture, and the other is Luo Bingyue. Sir said that Luo Bingyue is my wife. As Lin Yi spoke, he took out a wooden box and an animal skin and handed them over to Luo Yunyang. "What?" Luo Yunyang's expression was extremely unsightly. An intense killing intent erupted from him, but he quickly calmed down. He waved his hand, indicating for the guards to withdraw, leaving only Lin Yi behind. He had indeed been infuriated by Lin Yi's words. Using these 2 things in exchange for 2 things from the Luo family could be considered exchanging for something else. However, the Luo Water True Scripture was the Luo family's signature cultivation method. Luo Bingyue was his daughter and the super genius of the Luo family. Wouldn't this be an insult to the Luo family? Chapter 3. When Luo Yunyang's eyes swept over him, Lin Yi felt as if he had fallen into a 10,000-year-old ice cave. He couldn't move at all. This feeling was like a nightmare that made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Fortunately, Luo Yunyang's eyes swept over him and didn't linger. At this moment, Lin Yi's back was soaked with cold sweat. Is this the strength of an expert? It's too terrifying. Lin Yi was shocked and thought to himself. This feeling was even more terrifying than the powerful demonic beasts in the 100,000 mountains. For the first time, he felt powerless and that his fate was in the hands of others. At this moment, Lin Yi could only look at Luo Yunyang from the side. He didn't know what the middle-aged man would do next. At the same time, he also wanted to know what was on the animal skin and in the wooden box. This, Luo Yunyang suppressed the anger in his heart and opened the animal skin scroll. The expression on his face changed when he saw the contents of the scroll. He was a clan lord of a big clan and a super expert. He had the mental state to remain calm, even if MT Tai collapsed in front of him. However, his expression changed at this moment. The contents of the scroll were very simple. It could even be said that it was pitiful. Luo Yunyang glanced at it and then looked at Lin Yi again. At this moment, there was no cold, killing intent in his eyes. Instead, there was a kind of examination. Then, he withdrew his gaze and looked at the open wooden box. "You haven't cultivated. Have you tested your talent?" After a while, Luo Yunyang asked Lin Yi. His heart was already half cold. With his cultivation strength, he could naturally see that Lin Yi had no cultivation and no martial soul. However, the contents of the animal skin scroll were so shocking that he had to take it seriously. "I haven't cultivated. Mr. said that I don't have a martial soul. Lin Yi naturally understood Luo Yunyang's feelings. After coming out of the 100,000 mountains, he had seen countless humans with cultivation. This was a world of cultivation where martial arts flourished. Very few people didn't cultivate. He was the only one without a cultivation base. Naturally, he had no realm. He had also heard that the proud daughter of the Luo family, Luo Bingyue, had an ice-cold physique. She was definitely a super monstrous genius. He, a youth without a martial spirit and cultivation, wanted to marry the proud daughter of the Luo family. The Luo family would definitely not agree. The Luo Water Sutra is the ultimate cultivation technique of the Luo family. The entire Yinshui kingdom has 3 heaven-class techniques. If I give it to you, it will be detrimental to the Luo family. However, I'll let you watch for 3 days. As for the matter between you and Bingyue, I'll give you an answer in 3 days. When he heard Lin Yi say that he didn't cultivate and didn't have a martial soul, Luo Yunyang felt unwell. However, the Luo family couldn't deny this fact. They could only calm Lin Yi down for the time being and wait for the higher-ups of the Luo family to discuss before making a decision. As for the Luo Water Sutra, although it was extremely precious, he could still let Lin Yi take a look at it. He was confident that a youth without a martial soul and cultivation would not be able to obtain the Luo Water Sutra. Thank you, patriarch of the Luo family. Lin Yi nodded. He had no objections. All right, you can stay in Luo province for the time being. After you've rested, you can watch the Luo Water Sutra. Luo Yunyang was satisfied that Lin Yi had agreed. Today was definitely the most speechless day of his life. After that, Luo Yunyang asked his servants to bring Lin Yi to his residence and prepare a change of clothes for Lin Yi. Although he didn't know Lin Yi's background, he could tell that Lin Yi was poor from the clothes he was wearing. He didn't even have a shirt. When he saw that Lin Yi had left, Luo Yunyang turned around and walked towards the deepest part of the Luo family. In the deepest part of the Luo family, in a secret room, 5 elders who were over 50 years old were gathered in the room. Luo Yunyang, the head of the Luo family, was also present. However, while the 5 elders were sitting, Luo Yunyang was standing. In front of the elders, Luo Yunyang was like a child, waiting for the elders to make a decision. He had already told them what had happened. This was an agreement made 800 years ago. 800 years ago, the Luo family had nothing. The ancestors of the Luo family received guidance from an expert and obtained the Luo Water Sutra. Since then, the Luo family had established itself in the Yinshui kingdom. The expert once said that if a woman with the body of ice appeared in the Luo family, someone would come to the Luo family with a marriage contract. This is the Luo family's secret and ancestral teachings. Who would have thought that, 800 years later, a woman with the body of ice would appear in the Luo family, and someone would come with a marriage contract? The expression of the elder at the head of the table kept changing as he looked at the animal skin scroll. After a long time, he finally calmed down. The other elders were also extremely shocked. Only the elders and the head of the Luo family were qualified to know the ancestral teachings of the Luo family. Although the elders and the head of the Luo family had kept the ancestral teachings in mind, they didn't pay much attention to it as time passed. For them, it had been a long time, and the agreement might have been long forgotten. Who would have thought that, 800 years later, the marriage contract would come true? What's the name of this young man? The second elder asked, looking at Luo Yunyang with eyes as sharp as swords. Second uncle, I forgot to ask. Luo Yunyang couldn't help but be stunned when he heard the second elder's question. He wouldn't have made such a mistake even if he hadn't been there. He has no cultivation and no martial soul. How could such a person marry Bingyue? The fourth elder asked. According to Luo Yunyang's description, he was just an ordinary person and very poor. Don't forget the ancestral teachings. We'll pass this trial easily, but Bingyue will definitely not agree. The fifth elder said. As the elders of the Luo family and the pillars of the Luo family, they naturally couldn't forget the ancestral teachings. Even if a beast came with a marriage contract, the Luo family couldn't go against it, let alone a poor young man without a martial soul or cultivation. However, they knew that a proud daughter of heaven like Luo Bingyue wouldn't agree. The agreement from 800 years ago. 800 years later, the Luo family of the Sky Sea realm has never had an emperor physique. Now, a woman with an ice body has appeared. Is all of this really a coincidence? The first elder sighed. Could it be that all of this is that person's language? The third elder's expression changed as he spoke. But before he could finish, he was interrupted by the first elder. Avicania. Avicania. The first elder gestured for silence, not allowing the third elder to continue speaking. Whether it was a guess or a fact, everyone knew it in their hearts and couldn't say it out loud. Actually, there's only the first volume of the Luo Water Sutra. There's no problem letting him read the Luo Water Sutra. As for Bingyue, I'll talk to her. As for whether Bingyue agrees, that's a matter for the youngsters. Yinyang, you should also go into seclusion to cultivate. The second elder pondered for a moment before speaking. Understood. Luo Yunyang immediately understood when he heard the second elder's words. Chapter 4. Luo Family, Green Leaf Residence. This was where the Luo family entertained their distinguished guests. The environment was beautiful and suitable for meditation. Linyi was temporarily staying here. He had changed into a set of clothes from Luo province. It was the same green robe, clean and decent. This is indeed a prosperous world. Everyone is cultivating and reaching a certain level, but I don't have a martial soul. Linyi sat cross-legged, his entire being extremely calm. The Earth Emanations Pavilion Luo clan had told him to study the Luo River scripture after he had rested, but he did not mind. Although it was only 3 days, and others might not be able to memorize the Luo River scripture, he had the ability to memorize it, and could even comprehend it. As long as he read the scripture, he would be able to memorize it. This could be considered as fulfilling his master's task. As for Luo Bingyue, Luo Yunyang said he would give him an answer in 3 days. I wonder if the Luo water scripture is suitable for me. Luo Bingyue, ice constitution, super genius of the Luo family. Not bad. His state of mind was as calm as an ancient well. He started cultivating. That's right, cultivating. Although he didn't have a martial soul, he had cultivated the even more heaven-defying 3,000 heavenly Tao, which gave him terrifying divine telekinesis. Divine telekinesis was the specialty of divine telekinesis masters. Of course, martial artists also had divine telekinesis, which was what martial artists called mental power and consciousness. However, their divine telekinesis was very weak. Not everyone could cultivate divine telekinesis. Even if you had a heaven-defying martial soul, you might not be able to cultivate divine telekinesis. Out of 10,000 geniuses with emperor physiques, there might not even be one who could cultivate divine telekinesis. In Lin Ye's memory, there was a sky-blue jade pendant hanging around his neck. When he was 5 years old, Lin Ye had activated it and found that it was a space treasure. The space treasure was called the 9-layered space. The first layer was 1 mile long, wide and high. Moreover, the time inside was different from the outside. 2 days inside was 1 day outside, which was 2-1. This space treasure contained the cultivation method of the 3,000 heavenly Tao. When he had obtained the 3,000 heavenly Tao, he had also obtained a defensive technique called the absolute defense. The absolute defense ignored attacks. It was divided into 4 layers. The first layer weakened the opponent's attack by 50% and could be used once a day. The second layer weakened the opponent's attack by 80%. The third layer weakened the opponent's attack by 90%. The fourth layer, absolute defense, ignored all attacks. Level 10 divine telekinesis activated the space treasure, and the sky blue jade pendant became one with him. When he was 14 years old, his divine telekinesis had reached level 20, and he had successfully unlocked the second seal of his spatial treasure. He had obtained an offensive skill called Invincible Attack. At this moment, the ninefold space was 10 miles in length, width, and height. The time ratio was 4:1. More importantly, The ninefold space could devour spirit chi, causing it to be filled with spirit chi. The Invincible's defense. Invincible attack was divided into 5 levels. The first level allowed the user to double their attack power and ignore defense. It could be used once a day, allowing the user to insta-kill opponents of the same level. The second layer, Invincible's. The third layer, Invic attack. The fourth layer, Invincible's attack. The fifth layer, Invincible's attack. The heaven-defying, 9-layered space terrified Lin Yi. There were 3 major powers. The first was the ability to store anything into the 9-layered space. The second was the cultivation of the absolute defense, which had terrifying defensive power. The third was the cultivation of Invincible's invincible attack, which doubled one's strength. Right now, his absolute defense and invincible attack were both at the first level. If he wanted to reach the second level, he had no idea how long he would have to wait. This was because in order to reach the second level of absolute defense and invincible attack, he had to cultivate his divine telekinesis to level 30. The cultivation of divine telekinesis was extremely difficult. It was even more difficult than the cultivation of a martial artist. Lin Yi, who had entered the cultivation state, was like a statue. Naturally, he didn't know that he had become a celebrity at this moment. A down-and-out young man went to Luo province and claimed that Luo Bingyue was his wife. A toad lusting after a swan. I can't imagine how thick-skinned he is. This is so funny. I really don't know how Luo Bingyue and the Luo family will react. I've seen that young man before. He was dressed in green, and his clothes were too short. He looked very ordinary and didn't have any cultivation. He was just an ordinary person. I think someone is deliberately trying to discuss the Luo family and Luo Bingyue. Cloudwater City. Many people were spreading the news about what happened in Luo province. The guards of Luo province didn't dare to say these things. However, many people had seen Lin Yi's actions in front of Luo province's gate. The rumors became more and more outrageous and spread faster and faster. What made people remember him was Lin Yi's green robes that had been washed until they were white, and his lack of cultivation. Similarly, in the Luo family, there were countless individual courtyards. The Cold Moon Pavilion was the residence of the Luo family's super genius, Luo Bingyue. For a genius like her, even if she wasn't the daughter of the head of the family, she would still have her own courtyard. Moreover, she was now the #1 super genius of the Luo clan. She had an emperor body and an ice body. In the courtyard's pavilion, a young girl dressed in white was cultivating. Her body exuded an icy aura. Within a radius of 100 meters, it was as cold as a 10,000-year-old ice cave. Her long black hair reached her waist, and her beautiful face was devastatingly beautiful. She had an otherworldly temperament, and she was otherworldly. At this moment, she was like an ice goddess. She was the genius of the Luo family, Luo Bingyue, the 9th daughter of the head of the family. Yes, Luo Bingyue gently hummed as she cultivated. Her voice was cold, but it was like the sound of nature. She opened her beautiful eyes and looked at the courtyard. A middle-aged man walked in. Father. Seeing the middle-aged man, Luo Bingyue stopped cultivating and stood up. She opened her mouth and greeted the middle-aged man. Yes, this middle-aged man was the head of the Luo family, Luo Bingyue's father, Luo Yunyang. The path of cultivation requires both tension and relaxation. In the same year, your cultivation strength has surpassed others by too much. Luo Yunyang had a kind smile on his face. His daughter had made him proud and brought glory to the Luo family. Most of the geniuses in the same year were still in the acquired realm, and a few had just stepped into the innate realm. Luo Bingyue had now reached innate realm stage 7. This kind of cultivation speed could only be achieved by someone with an emperor body. On the path of Theta Scarabii, cultivation started from the shallow to the deep. The further one went, the more difficult it was to improve. The martial arts realms were divided into 9 realms: acquired realm, innate realm, spiritual movement realm, heaven's dipper realm, manifestation realm, yin-yang realm, refined void realm, creation realm, and celestial realm. Each realm was divided into 9 levels. You understands. Luo Bingwei replied respectfully. Father has something to discuss with you. Let's see what you suggest. Luo Yunyang thought of what he wanted to say and could not help but hesitate. However, he still had to ask for Luo Bingyue's suggestion. As a father, it was not very kind of him to throw this burden to Luo Bingwei. Father, please tell me what you have to say. Luo Bingwei looked at her father's expression and could not help but be curious. Her father was the patriarch of the Luo clan and a super expert. There were very few things that could trouble him. She couldn't think of anything that had to do with her. Naturally, she didn't know what was going on outside because she had been cultivating in the Cold Moon Pavilion. Today, a young man came to Luo province. He has an engagement with you, an engagement from 800 years ago. Luo Yinyang took a deep breath and told Luo Bingyue what had happened today. As he spoke, he observed the changes in Luo Bingyue's expression. After he finished speaking, he reached out and handed a wooden box to Luo Bingyue. The expression on Luo Bingyue's beautiful little face kept changing. She cultivated the heavenly ice technique, and her state of mind was as calm as an ancient well. However, after listening to her father's words, she was also greatly affected. Chapter 5. The wooden box was only the size of a palm and was simple and unadorned. Inside the wooden box was a carving of a divine phoenix. It was unknown what material the carving was made of, but the carving was so lifelike that it looked like it was about to spread its wings and fly. Other than that, there was nothing else in the wooden box. Father, where is he? Luo Bingwei closed the wooden box and asked Luo Yunyang. At this moment, she had already made a decision. Green Leaf Residence. He is currently on his way to the Forbidden Grounds to view the Luo Water Sutra. You are want to see him? Luo Yunyang looked curiously at Luo Bingwei. Could it be that his daughter wanted to see the youth? One had to know that Luo Bingwei already knew about Theta Scarabii situation. Yes, since it is the ancestral teachings, then it has to be obeyed. I will handle this matter. Luo Bingwei pondered for a moment before speaking. All right then. Father will also be in seclusion for a period of time. Luo Yunyang did not expect Luo Bingwei to personally take on this difficult problem. He could not help but feel relieved, but a trace of guilt rose from the bottom of his heart. He was too irresponsible as a father. Before he could finish his sentence, he had already left the Cold Moon Pavilion. No martial soul, no cultivation. Seeing Luo Yunyang leave, Luo Bingwei muttered to herself. Her beautiful face was even colder. She did not expect such a thing to happen to her. A super genius with a beauty that could topple cities. In the future, she would stand at the pinnacle of the kingdom and even the sky-sea realm. Could it be that her husband was an ordinary person who could not cultivate? You want to become my, Luo Bingyue's husband? Let's see if you have the ability. Luo Bingyue sat cross-legged again and began cultivating. In her world, cultivation was all about strengthening oneself. Only by strengthening oneself could one control one's own destiny. Luo family, in a secret chamber. Linyi had been here for 3 days. 3 days ago, he had come here to view the Luo River scripture. The Luo Family Sutra was a low-grade heaven-class technique. It was one of the 3 heaven-class techniques in the Yinshui Kingdom. With the Luo Family Sutra, the Luo family gained a foothold in the Yinshui Kingdom and became one of the top 10 families in the Yinshui Kingdom. Only the geniuses and elders of the Luo family had the qualifications to cultivate the Luo Water Sutra. However, even if those geniuses cultivated the Luo River Sutra, they would only copy it by hand in Luo province. Moreover, they would have to destroy it after reading it. It cannot be passed on to outsiders. Very few people had seen the original copy of the Luo River Sutra. Luo Yunyang had agreed to let Lin Yi view the Luo Water Sutra for 3 days because of their agreement. Lin Yi was alone in the secret chamber. In his hand was a piece of bee skin that emitted a terrifying aura. On the bee skin, there were numerous scriptures. The scriptures were profound and obscure. It was difficult to understand them, let alone memorize them all. However, Lin Yi had already memorized the Luo Water Sutra the moment he saw it. With his powerful divine telekinesis, his mind was sharper, his memory was better, and his analytical skills were even more terrifying. With a glance, he had imprinted the Luo Water Sutra into his mind. The reason why he hadn't left was because he didn't want to shock the people of Luo province. Moreover, this place was perfect for him to study the Luo Water Sutra. Remnant. The Luo Water Sutra is only a remnant. Just like my 3,000 heavenly Daos, the 3,000 heavenly Daos only has the first volume. This Luo River Sutra also only has the first volume and no second volume. Could it be that the Luo clan intentionally did not take out the second volume for me to read? 3 days later, Lin Yi had comprehended the entire Luo Water Sutra. Although the Luo Water True Sutra was a heaven-rank cultivation technique, it was one of the top existences in the Cloud Water Kingdom and even the Sky Sea realm. It was very difficult to comprehend and cultivate, but compared to the 3,000 heavenly Tao, it paled in comparison. They were on completely different levels. If he could cultivate the 3,000 heavenly Tao, he would naturally be able to easily comprehend the first volume of the Luo Water Sutra. After comprehending the Luo Water Sutra, Lin Yi's expression turned ugly. This was because he realized that the Luo Water Sutra he had seen was only the first volume. Fortunately, the first volume was complete and was indeed a complete technique. It was just that the second volume was missing. This shouldn't be the case. The Luo family wouldn't hide the second volume. After all, they're a large family in the Yinshui kingdom. Lin Yi muttered to himself after pondering for a moment. At this moment, he had already comprehended the Luo Water Sutra. Whether he could cultivate it or not, he would know once he verified it. Now, what he wanted most was to leave this place and cultivate the Luo Water Sutra. He took the Luo Water Sutra and left the secret chamber. After passing the Luo Water Sutra to the Luo family elder, he returned to the Green Leaf residence. The secret chamber wasn't far from the Green Leaf residence. Soon, Lin Yi arrived at the courtyard of the Green Leaf residence. As soon as he returned to the courtyard, he saw a graceful and beautiful figure. She was dressed in moon-white clothes, with long black hair hanging down to her waist. The faint cold aura made the woman even more mysterious. Although he couldn't see her face, her temperament was like that of an otherworldly goddess. Seeing this figure, Lin Yi's heart couldn't help but beat faster, even if he had a level 20 spiritual force. You're back. Have you memorized the Luo Water Sutra? The woman turned around, looked at Lin Yi, and asked. With her cultivation and perception, even if her back was facing Lin Yi, she would be able to detect Lin Yi's appearance immediately. She was naturally the Luo family's super genius, Luo Bingyue. Yes, I'm back. The Luo Water Sutra is not bad. You are Luo Bingyue? Lin Yi nodded and walked into the courtyard step by step. He didn't say whether he had memorized the Luo Water Sutra and didn't answer the question. His clear eyes were like stars as he sized up Luo Bingyue. He was indeed stunned by this beautiful woman in front of him. Her beautiful back was like that of a goddess. After she turned around, her face was even more devastatingly beautiful, causing one's heart to pound nonstop. After leaving the 100,000 mountains and coming to the human world, he had seen many people. He had also seen many beautiful women in the Cloudwater City. However, compared to this woman in front of him, they were like heaven and earth. You're Lin Yi? Luo Bingyue's beautiful eyes swept over Lin Yi and then retracted her gaze. In her heart, she had an impression of Lin Yi. He was ordinary, and unremarkable. However, he had a scholarly aura and gave people a sense of calmness. He was the kind that was pleasing to the eye. However, in this world where the strong were respected, those who didn't become strong were just ordinary people. They would only be trampled on by others. Moreover, ordinary people only had a short lifespan of a few decades or 100 years. However, this young man in front of her didn't have a martial spirit. How could he cultivate? Yes, I am Lin Yi. Sit down. Lin Yi nodded and walked step by step towards the center of the courtyard. He stopped 5 meters away from Luo Bingwe and pointed to the tea table not far away as he said to Luo Bingwe. From the beginning to the end, his expression was calm. There was no restraint or exaggeration. At this moment, he was completely like the owner of this place, and Luo Bingwe was like a guest. You really don't have a martial spirit? You really don't have a cultivation base? Luo Bingwe didn't sit down. She stood in place. She was stunned by Lin Ye's behavior. I don't. Lin Yi didn't hesitate. He really didn't have a martial spirit. He didn't have a cultivation base. He had never cultivated before. Of course, the 3,000 heavenly Tao, absolute defense, and invincible attack were exceptions. You came to Luo province and used two things to exchange for two things. The first is the Luo water scripture, which you have already obtained. The second is to use this to exchange for me, right? Luo Bingwe raised her head slightly and looked at the sky above the courtyard. Her cold voice slowly sounded. The entire courtyard became cold because of this cold voice. As she spoke, a palm-sized wooden box appeared in her hand. Lin Yi naturally recognized this wooden box. This was given to him by his teacher. He wanted him to use the bee skin scroll and this wooden box to exchange for two things from the Luo family. However, from the beginning to the end, he didn't know what was on the bee skin scroll, nor did he know what was inside the wooden box. The head of the Luo family wants you to reply to me. Lin Yi didn't reply. However, at this moment he understood. The head of the Luo family said that he would give him a reply in 3 days. 3 days passed. He had already read the Luo water scripture. The head of the Luo family didn't appear. However, Luo Bingwe appeared. Without a doubt, this Luo Bingwe was here to reply to him. My father is in closed-door cultivation. I have full authority to deal with this matter. I will give you a reply today. Luo Bingwe didn't deny or admit. Chapter 6. Oh, hearing Luo Bingwe's reply, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel surprised, even though he had already guessed it. He didn't say anything and waited for Luo Bingwe to continue. Leave this with me for now. The Luo family will never forget the ancestral teachings of the Luo family. 10 years from now, I promise you that I will train with you, but I won't restrict you. What do you think? Luo Bingwe said coldly. Although her tone sounded tactful, it was still cold. She had already thought it through. As a member of the Luo family, she wouldn't forget the ancestral teachings of the Luo family. Since the other party had already found her, she would face it, even if it was an ordinary person like Lin Yi who didn't have a martial soul and had never trained. Although she was unwilling, she could only accept it. Everything was for the sake of the Luo family. After speaking, she turned to look at Lin Yi, hoping that Lin Yi would agree. This was already the last step she had taken. She had an ice body, the #1 genius of the Luo family, and the most powerful genius of the Yunshui kingdom. These 10 years were very important for her. Of course, she had other thoughts in her heart, which was to train with Lin Yi. With her talent and future achievements, she could find some treasures to improve Lin Yi's strength and extend his life. Moreover, she could also make Lin Yi feel pressured. Because for a super genius like her, who was as beautiful as a goddess, those who pursued her would naturally be super monstrous and super strong. This way, Lin Yi would automatically give up due to the pressure. Even if she married an ordinary person like Lin Yi 10 years later, she could only accept her fate. Okay, of course, I hope you won't forget what you said today. Of course, I believe in your pride. Lin Yi didn't hesitate and nodded. It was just 10 years. For a cultivator, 10 years wasn't a long time. Moreover, he knew that these 10 years were the most important period for Luo Bingwe. He didn't want to ruin Luo Bingwe's future. In a few days, the 4 colleges will recruit disciples. I choose Paladin Academy. When the time comes, I will bring 3 people to enter Paladin Academy. You will follow me, and I will get someone to arrange everything for you. Luo Bingwe didn't expect Lin Yi to agree so easily. She couldn't help but be startled. She walked out of the courtyard while talking. Luo Bingwe had already disappeared. The air in the courtyard was filled with a faint fragrance, but more of it was icy cold. Lin Yi smiled faintly. He knew that with Luo Bingyue's talent, the 4 colleges would definitely fight for her. For Luo Bingyue, bringing a few people to the college couldn't be easier. After waiting for Luo Bingyue to leave, Lin Yi returned to his room and started cultivating. After comprehending the Luo River scripture for 3 days, he couldn't wait to try it out. He didn't know if he could cultivate it. The Luo River scripture is a good cultivation technique. Lin Yi sat cross-legged and started cultivating. Although he hadn't cultivated any cultivation techniques or martial techniques, he had the experience of cultivating the 3,000 heavenly Tao. He cultivated the Luo River scripture according to the 3,000 heavenly Tao. Time passed by second. Unknowingly, 2 hours had passed. Finally, the Luo River scripture was cultivated without any hindrance. There wasn't the slightest problem. For hours passed, Lin Yi felt traces of pure power flowing in his body. This is the Hotian first stage. Discovering the power in his body, Lin Yi couldn't help but be excited. With the 3,000 heavenly Tao as a supplement, there was no hindrance in cultivating the cultivation technique. Moreover, he could cultivate without a martial spirit. Hotian second, stage Otian third, stage Otian fourth, stage Otian fifth, stage 1 day passed. Lin Yi stopped cultivating. At this moment, he had already reached the Hotian 5th stage. In a short day, he had never cultivated to the Hotian 5th stage for the first time. This made him feel shocked. Fortunately, no one knew. If someone knew that he had broken through 5 stages in a short day, he would definitely be pulled out and studied like a monster. The Hotian 5th stage, an ordinary genius would have to cultivate for 2 or 3 years. What Mr. said is right. I don't have a martial spirit. Maybe I can still cultivate. Lin Yi retracted his cultivation and stopped cultivating. However, although he didn't take the initiative to cultivate, the Luo River scripture was still automatically circulating. His cultivation was constantly improving. It was equivalent to cultivating all the time. Next, Lin Yi cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Tao once. Of course, the absolute defense and the invincible attack would not be relaxed. This was the method of registration. The next day, just as he woke up, he sensed someone coming to the Green Leaf residence. "Greetings, Mr. Lin." A voice sounded and passed into Lin Yi's ears. "You are?" Lin Yi walked out of the room and saw a plain-clothed youth. He couldn't help but ask, "I'm Luo Ling, Bing Yue's cousin." Luo Ling said with a smile on his face. His eyes sized up Lin Yi. He already knew about the matter between Luo Bingyue and Lin Yi. He was very curious and even more unconvinced. The dignified super genius of the Luo family had a fiancée without a martial spirit and cultivation. This was the tragedy of the Luo family and the joke of the Luo family. However, before coming here, Luo Bingyue had already said not to be rude. "Bingyue's cousin, do you need something from me?" Lin Yi looked at Luo Ling. He didn't know why Luo Ling was here. He didn't seem to know Luo Ling. Or rather, in this world, he only knew the teacher, Luo Bingyue and Luo Yunyang. "Bingyue said that you just came to the Cloud Water Great City." "I don't know much about the Cloud Water Great City. She asked me to show you around and get to know you better. Bingyue gave this to you. Take it." Luo Ling smiled and was very polite, showing the bearing and elegance of a disciple of a big family. At the end, he handed a bag to Lin Yi. He was also asked by Luo Bingyue to help Lin Yi understand the Cloud Water Great City and the basics of cultivation. "Thank you." Lin Yi took the bag. It was about the size of a palm. After thanking him, he opened the bag, wanting to know what was inside. When he opened the bag, he found that it was about 1 meter in length, width, and height. It could hold many things. Moreover, there were many shiny gold coins, more than 10,000 of them. In addition, there was a 10-centimeter long, 8-centimeter wide, 2-millimeter thick transparent chip. The chip emitted a light blue luster, emitting a dazzling charm. He knew that gold coins were the currency of humans, but he didn't know what the chip was used for. He took it out and waved it in front of Luo Ling. His face was full of doubt. "This is an identity chip. It contains simple information about you. At the same time, Your wealth can be accumulated in it. Drip your blood to activate it and you'll understand. In the future, this chip will accompany you. Although it is small, it is incomparably hard. Luo Ling was also a Xiantian martial artist and a genius. Naturally, he could tell that Lin Yi didn't recognize this chip. He was speechless, because as long as one was a human, they would recognize this chip. But Lin Yi didn't recognize it. Could it be that he came from mountains? He was right. Lin Yi did come from the mountains. Chi! Lin Yi soon understood. He looked at the chip curiously. He gently made a cut on his finger. A drop of blood appeared and dripped onto the chip. The moment the blood dripped onto the chip, there was a slight sound. The chip also emitted a faint glow. Lin Yi felt that this chip was connected to him. On the chip, simple information was displayed. Country, Yin Shui Kingdom Address, Cloud Water Great City Address, Luo Province Name, Lin Yi Cultivation, Acquired Stage 5 Martial Soul, None Wealth. 1 million gold coins. The information was simple, but there were no mistakes. Lin Yi couldn't help but be shocked. The other information was nothing because this chip was obtained for him by Luo Province. However, the people of Luo Province didn't know about his cultivation. In this world, only he knew. Chapter 7. Over the next few days, Luo Ling led Lin Yi around Yinshui City. Lin Yi was like the surface of the sea, absorbing everything in the human world. Fortunately, he had cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Tao, so his mind and memory were terrifying. He remembered everything he saw and heard. Luo Ling explained everything he didn't understand. In just 5 days, Lin Yi had completely integrated into this world. His knowledge of cultivation, his knowledge of how to deal with things, and his knowledge of life brought Lin Yi countless new things. The current Lin Yi was no longer a novice from the mountains. He had a certain understanding of the human world, which was no different from the knowledge of his peers in Yinshui City. The only thing that hadn't changed was his state of mind and his personality. At the same time, he could be considered a celebrity. Because of the matter between him and Luo Bingwe, people originally thought that Lin Yi had come to discuss the Luo family. This made him a laughingstock and a topic of conversation. But something even more shocking had happened. Lin Yi had really moved into the Luo family. Although the Luo family hadn't said anything about the engagement between Luo Bingwe and Lin Yi, the Luo family's actions left room for people to daydream. Could a poor young man with no martial soul and no cultivation really be the fiancé of the Luo family's super genius, Luo Bingwe? If that was really the case, then it would be like a flower stuck in cow dung. Who was Luo Bingwe? She was the Luo family's #1 genius, the Yinshui Kingdom's #1 beauty, the ice goddess, and the ice body. Lin Yi turned a deaf ear to the discussions of outsiders, as if he hadn't heard them at all. While countless people were talking about Lin Yi, the 4 academies were also recruiting disciples. The geniuses of the 72 cities of Yinshui Kingdom were like carps crossing the river. They wanted to make the leap and enter the 4 academies to cultivate. After half a month of competition, the 4 great academies had recruited a total of 20,000 genius disciples. Those who entered the 4 academies all had at least a 3rd grade spiritual vein and a Khanate realm cultivation. This time, the 4 great academies were shocked. This was because in addition to Luo Bingwe, there were 6 other super geniuses with king physiques. Geniuses with emperor physiques stood at the pinnacle of geniuses, and the academy focused on nurturing them. There were 107 people with 9th grade spiritual heritage and nearly 1,000 7th grade spiritual heritage. This was definitely the highest number of geniuses in the past 1,000 years. This made the 4 academies very excited. The academy offered generous benefits to snatch these geniuses away. Shengwu College, Emperor Physique Geniuses, Luo Bingwe, and Dongfang Qing. There were 280 grade 7 and grade 8 spiritual heritage, 41 grade 9 spiritual heritage, and nearly 5,000 other geniuses. The recruitment of disciples by the 4 great academies had come to an end. Although Lin Yi didn't participate in the competition and didn't have a martial spirit or cultivation, he was qualified to enter Shengwu College and cultivate with Luo Bingwe because of Luo Bingwe. Come with me to Shengwu College tomorrow. Luo Bingwe arrived at the Greenleaf residence. She glanced at Lin Yi and said, this was the second time she came to see Lin Yi at the Greenleaf residence since Lin Yi came to Luo province. Her voice was as cold as ever, and her temperament was even more otherworldly. Everything is arranged? Lin Yi nodded. During this period of time, he learned that in order to become strong, in addition to talent, one also needed heaven-defying resources. Cultivation methods, martial techniques, spiritual weapons, spiritual pills, gold coins, spiritual stones. All kinds of resources were only owned by the big families and academies. In addition, more often than not, one had to rely on oneself to fight for them. In this world, there was no shortage of geniuses. What was lacking was resources. Therefore, he could only enter Shengwu College now. When the time came, he would find a way to obtain resources to cultivate and strengthen himself. Only when he was strong could he protect himself and the people around him. He wouldn't be bullied by others and live a more free life. There were a lot of people talking about him during this period of time. Even many super geniuses ignored his existence and openly said that they wanted to pursue Luo Bingwe. He understood that if he had terrifying strength, others wouldn't dare to have such thoughts. Of course, no one knew that he was already practicing cultivation methods. Moreover, his cultivation had reached the Hotian 9th stage and was only one step away from the Xiantian realm. However, after he practiced the 3,000 heavenly Tao, as long as he didn't use cultivation methods, ordinary people wouldn't be able to see his cultivation. Yes, it's arranged. There's a party. You should go too. Luo Bingwe couldn't help but be stunned when she heard Lin Ye's tone. However, she didn't care about it. What party? Lin Yi asked curiously. He had just arrived in Yinshui City and didn't know many people. If it was a party, there should be a lot of people. In fact, he didn't want to attend such a party. Some super geniuses of Yinshui Kingdom. It's hosted by the Luo family. You and I will go and show our faces. Luo Bingwe said. She didn't like to gather with people. Moreover, her temperament was 1,000 miles away. Other people didn't want to ask for a snub. However, this party was to receive some super geniuses of Yinshui Kingdom and neighboring countries. Out of politeness, she had to attend. Since Lin Yi was there, he could be her shield. Okay. Lin Yi thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. Originally, he didn't want to go because he would be talked about. Let's go. Luo Bingwe said and left. All that was left for Lin Yi was that beautiful and graceful back view. Seeing that Luo Bingwe had left, Lin Yi didn't hesitate and followed. He appeared beside Luo Bingwe. The faint fragrance and cold air made Lin Yi smile. He had to admit that Luo Bingwe was a beautiful girl. She was the incarnation of an ice goddess. The Luo family was one of the top 10 families in Yinshui City. They had a prominent status. Luo Bingwe was unparalleled in beauty and was regarded as a goddess by countless geniuses. Many big families wanted to marry Luo Bingwe. Now that the Luo family had activated the ice body, the status of the Luo family had reached a higher level. The geniuses of the 72 cities had joined the 4 schools. As a result, Yinshui City was even more lively this year. Many super geniuses admired Luo Bingwe and visited Luo province, even though there were rumors that Luo Bingwe had a fiancé. Although the Luo family was one of the top 10 families in Yinshui City, it wasn't good to offend the geniuses and experts of the entire kingdom. In order to deal with the countless geniuses and experts, the Luo family used the excuse that Luo Bingwe was in seclusion to cultivate. However, there were a few super geniuses that the Luo family couldn't refuse. Thus, the Luo family held a banquet for these geniuses to interact. In the square of Luo province, many members of the Luo family and some super geniuses of the Yinshui Kingdom had gathered. These geniuses all had a 9th grade spiritual heritage. There were even geniuses with emperor physiques like Luo Bingwe. Yueqing City's #1 genius, Li Xingchen. Wildland City's #1 genius, Jun Hanli. Meteor Trail City's #1 genius, Wang Feng. Lingye City's #1 genius, Yi Jifan. In the seats of the square, the famous geniuses had already arrived. These geniuses were the most dazzling geniuses of the younger generation in the Yinshui kingdom. This era belonged to them. Everyone in the Luo family knew that these geniuses were all here for Luo Bingwe. In other words, they all wanted to show off their talents in front of Luo Bingwe. The host of this banquet was a super genius from the Luo family. 10 years ago, his status was similar to Luo Bingyue's in the Luo family. Now, he had become an incredible expert. Welcome to Luo Province, young geniuses. This brings light to Luo Province's humble dwelling. Haha. Luo Qingcheng sat on the main seat and glanced at the geniuses present. He stood up and spoke loudly. The older generation naturally wouldn't get involved in a banquet between the younger generation. Naturally, he became the host of this banquet. With his status, no one dared to mess around. Big Brother Qingcheng, you're too polite. I hope Big Brother Qingcheng can guide me in the future. Junior sister Bingwe isn't here? Luo Province's fairy Bingwe is known by everyone in the Yinshui kingdom. Fairy Bingwe is peerless and has an ice body. She's the most perfect creation of the heavens. But why haven't I seen Fairy Bingwe? Don't tell me she's still cultivating? Haha. Hearing Luo Qingcheng speak, many of the geniuses present became polite to him. Luo Qingcheng wasn't only a super genius in Luo Province. He was also Luo Bingyue's big brother. Aren't I here? Chapter 8. Everyone followed Luo Qingcheng's gaze and saw a beautiful figure walking towards the square. She was wearing a moon-white robe and a long skirt. She had a cold temperament that kept people thousands of miles away. She was so beautiful that she could cause the downfall of a country. She was like a goddess who didn't eat the food of mortals. Although she was only a young girl, she was completely an ice goddess except for a trace of immaturity. Immediately, the countless sky prides present were excited. Luo Bingyue's name was known by many people in the past because of her beauty. However, not many people had seen her in person. The adult Luo Bingyue and Luo Bingyue's ice body had made her famous. Now that they had seen her in person, they were all shocked. However, when they saw the young man beside her, they couldn't help but frown. Ice Moon Fairy, junior sister Ice Moon. When Luo Bingyue arrived, all the sky prides present stood up to greet her. However, they directly ignored Lin Yi, who was beside Luo Bingyue, as if Lin Yi was heir. Lin Yi had already expected this situation. He calmly followed Luo Bingyue. Brother-in-law. Just as Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue were walking towards their seats, a clear voice sounded. The voice was delicate, like an orchid in an empty valley, like a lark. This voice was obviously directed at him. Lin Yi couldn't help but be startled. He looked in the direction of the voice. When Lin Yi looked over, he couldn't help but be shocked. Then he looked at Luo Bingyue beside him and rubbed his eyes, thinking that his eyes were playing tricks on him, because in his line of sight was a young girl. What shocked him was that the young girl was exactly the same as Luo Bingyue. However, Luo Bingyue was wearing a moon-white robe and a long skirt, while the young girl who had just called out to him was wearing a black robe. If he hadn't seen Luo Bingyue beside him, he would have thought that the young girl was Luo Bingyue. This, Lin Yi was startled. He looked at Luo Bingyue with a puzzled gaze. She's my sister. She's Luo Xing. Luo Bingyue naturally understood Lin Yi's surprise. Not to mention Lin Yi. Anyone who had seen Luo Bingyue and Luo Xing would have the same expression. Even the couple couldn't tell the sisters apart. And Luo Xing. Luo Bingyue and Luo Xing were twin sisters. Lin Yi suddenly understood. No wonder they looked so similar. To be honest, if it weren't for Luo Bingyue's ice physique, he really wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between Luo Bingyue and Luo Xing. Of course, he could tell with a glance if he used his spiritual sense. Xing. Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue arrived in front of Luo Xing. Lin Yi had a smile on his face as he called out to Luo Xing. He discovered that Luo Xing's talent was ordinary. She couldn't even be considered a genius. Compared to Luo Bingyue, she was world apart. However, her appearance was exactly the same. Her temperament was the opposite of Luo Bingyue's. Luo Bingyue was cold and unapproachable. She was like an ice goddess. On the other hand, Luo Xing was gentle and cute. She was like a little sister next door. Brother-in-law, they all say that you can't cultivate. Is that true? Luo Xing asked curiously. Almost everyone in Luo province knew about Lin Yi. However, she still didn't believe that Lin Yi didn't have a martial soul or cultivation. If he really didn't have a martial soul or cultivation, why would her proud and cold sister agree to Lin Yi's request? Haha, I always think that a gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists. Why we have to fight? Can't we just sit down and talk calmly? Lin Yi smiled. He didn't admit or deny it. Instead, he said something that all the Sky Prides present despised. In the ears of all the Sky Prides, Lin Yi was making excuses for himself. Brother-in-law, you're so interesting. Luo Xing couldn't help but laugh. Xing Luo Bingyue felt uncomfortable when she heard her sister call Lin Yi brother-in-law. After all, she was only a 16-year-old girl. Humph, mother said that you were only born half an hour earlier than me. If I was born first, I would be your sister. You always think that you are much older than me. Luo Xing pouted her rosy lips and snorted. She had always been like this with Luo Bingyue. She was not much younger than Luo Bingyue, but she had to call Luo Bingyue's sister. Moreover, Luo Bingyue always acted like an older sister. Okay, what a joke. Luo Qingcheng couldn't help but feel a headache when he saw his two sisters. The two sisters were spoiled by him like treasures. Big brother, big brother. Luo Bingyue and Luo Xing both called out to Luo Qingcheng. Lin Yi was startled for a moment before he also called out. After greeting each other, Luo Qingcheng asked Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue to sit down. The geniuses present were extremely envious when they saw Luo Bingyue and Luo Xing. The two sisters were both devastatingly beautiful girls. The only thing they lacked was Luo Xing's talent, which was far inferior to Luo Bingyue's. Otherwise, Luo Xing would be the ideal partner for countless geniuses. While they were envious of Luo Bingyue and her sister, there were even more people who were jealous of Lin Yi. They despised Lin Yi and looked down on Lin Yi. In their eyes, Lin Yi was a piece of trash. Even calling him a piece of trash was giving him too much face. However, no one dared to say anything about Lin Yi because of the existence of the Luo family. There are rumors outside that young Master Lin Yi is junior sister Bingyue's fiancé. I'm curious. I wonder if it's true. Zhou Xuefeng stood up and walked to the center of the square. He looked at Luo Bingyue and then turned his gaze to Lin Yi. In his opinion, the Luo family must be hindering something by marrying their number one genius goddess to a piece of trash. If Lin Yi was crippled, then the Luo family wouldn't say anything for a piece of trash. They might even release Luo Bingyue. In this way, maybe Luo Bingyue would be grateful to him. Zhou Xuefeng was at Xiantian 3rd stage in 9th grade spiritual vein. He was one of the top geniuses of Spiritual Soil City. So, he naturally didn't like Lin Yi. Rumors outside, they say that martial artists have sharp ears and sharp eyes. Xing, just call me brother-in-law. Is there something wrong with your ears? Lin Yi said with a smile on his face. If it was something that belonged to him, then others shouldn't even think about touching it. This Zhou Xuefeng was the one who made the most noise just now, and now he was the one who stood out and mocked him. If people respect me, I will return the favor tenfold. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I will return the favor tenfold or hundredfold. Zhou Xuefeng didn't expect that Lin Yi would scold him in a roundabout way. Being scolded by Lin Yi in front of countless geniuses, he was so angry that he was speechless. The geniuses present also didn't expect this. You are all geniuses of the 72 cities of Yinshui Kingdom. Actually, in my opinion, you are insulting the word geniuses. With a smile on his face, Lin Yi scanned all the geniuses present. At least 10 of them were the top geniuses of the 72 cities, and all of them had ninth-grade spiritual veins. The others were also extraordinary geniuses, but in his eyes, they were not geniuses. After coming to the human world, he had figured out the rules of the human world. The law of the jungle was followed here. The strong preyed on the weak. If you were weak, others would trample on you. If you were strong, others would respect you. Only the strong would be respected. Suck, you. Lin Yi. Arrogant. Ignorant. Lin Ye's words stunned everyone in the square. They didn't expect that Lin Yi would scold everyone after scolding Zhou Xuefang. He said that the geniuses present were insulting the word geniuses. If a genius with a saintly body said this, he wouldn't dare to say anything. Even a genius with a saintly body wouldn't say this. However, Lin Yi was nothing. He wasn't even an ordinary warrior, let alone a genius. He didn't even have a martial soul or cultivation. In this way, people would think that Lin Yi was jealous of all the geniuses. Even Luo Xing, Luo Bingyue, and Luo Qingsheng couldn't help but frown, because Lin Ye's words had undoubtedly offended all the geniuses. At the same time, they also doubted Lin Ye's character and character. For a moment, the geniuses present were furious. They stood up and wanted to tear Lin Yi to pieces. Junior sister Bingyue, you saw it. Lin Yi doesn't have a martial soul or cultivation. His character is also unsightly. I really didn't expect that the Luo family would marry a good-for-nothing. It's fine if he's a good-for-nothing, but his arrogance and ignorance are intolerable. Brother Qingsheng, you saw it with your own eyes. You should give us an explanation. Are the geniuses of the 72 cities so easy to humiliate? The geniuses in the square were all furious. Everyone looked at Lin Yi, waiting to see a good show. They wanted to know how the Luo family would explain it to everyone. Geniuses? I think it's a joke. Can you prove that you're geniuses? Before Luo Qingsheng could speak, Lin Yi spoke. This time, he wanted to show his strength to all the geniuses so that they wouldn't be disturbed when they went to the Sacred Martial Arts Academy, while they were still in the Luo family. Even if they offended these geniuses, the Luo family would solve it. On the side, Luo Qingsheng and his siblings felt extremely helpless in their hearts. However, the three of them didn't speak. They naturally wouldn't help the other geniuses blame Lin Yi, nor would they help Lin Yi provoke the geniuses present. After all, Lin Yi was in the wrong. Since you said we're not geniuses, could it be that you're a genius? Well, you could teach us a thing or two. Li Xingqian, 9th grade spiritual pulse, Xiantian 4th stage. He was considered an extraordinary figure among his peers. In this gathering, he was one of the strongest geniuses. As he spoke, he walked towards the center of the square step by step, looking at Lin Yi. He wanted to teach Lin Yi a lesson in front of the Luo family. He wanted to teach Lin Yi a lesson and let him know that geniuses weren't to be trifled with. With his status, even the Luo family wouldn't dare to offend him. Li Xingqian. Without waiting for Lin Ye's reply, Luo Bingyue had already stood up. Her beautiful figure walked towards Li Xingqian step by step as a powerful, icy aura emanated from her body. Luo Bingyue, you're standing up for Lin Yi? Li Xingqian stopped in his tracks. He stared at Luo Bingyue. He was proud, but he wasn't a fool. He knew that he wasn't a match for Luo Bingyue. If he met Luo Bingyue, he would only be looking for trouble. Naturally, he wouldn't do such a thing. His talent couldn't be compared to Luo Bingyue. His cultivation couldn't be compared to Luo Bingyue. His strength wasn't a match for Luo Bingyue. Lin Yi is a member of the Luo family. No matter how bad he is, he can't be bullied by outsiders. Luo Bingyue's cold voice sounded. She had her pride, even if she looked down on Lin Yi. But she wouldn't forget her promise because of Lin Yi. This was fate. Luo Bingyue, I admit that I'm not a match for you now. Lin Yi, you're destined to hide behind a woman for the rest of your life. Li Xingqian took a deep breath and found a way out for himself. He directly admitted that he wasn't a match for Luo Bingyue, but only for the time being, Luo Bingyue. He looked at Lin Yi and said coldly, "Is that so?" Chapter 9. Is that so? Lin Yi, who was sitting in his seat, said faintly with a smile. He stood up and walked towards Luo Bingyue. looking at Li Xingqian. He did not expect Luo Bingyue to be on his side. When the geniuses saw Lin Yi walk out, they couldn't help but be surprised. What was Lin Yi going to do? Was he angered by Li Xingqian? Why? Am I wrong? You're destined to hide behind a woman for the rest of your life. Li Xingqian looked at Lin Yi with disdain. At this moment, in his eyes, Lin Yi was not even comparable to a pile of **T. No matter how he looked at him, Lin Yi was an eyesore. If it weren't for the fact that they were in the Luo Manor in front of countless geniuses, he would have killed Lin Yi long ago. To be honest, I have the ability to hide behind a woman. If she's willing, do you have the ability? Lin Yi smiled and looked at Luo Bingyue. At this moment, he realized that Luo Bingyue was even more beautiful than before. Shameless. Hearing Lin Ye's words, everyone cursed in their hearts. Even Luo Bingyue was speechless. If it was not a promise, who would be willing? You're shameless. I'm impressed. Other than that, you're useless. Li Xingqian was also defeated by Lin Ye's words. In front of other women, he was a sky pride. But in front of Luo Bingyue, he was too far away. He did not have the ability to make Luo Bingyue stand up for him. To be honest, I admire you so-called sky prides. Teach me? You're not qualified. For trash like you, I can crush you to death with a single finger. Lin Yi stood beside Luo Bingyue. His eyes intentionally or unintentionally sized up Li Xingqian. This kind of look was a great provocation to a martial artist. Ignorant. Not only ignorant, but also arrogant. You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How would ordinary people know how powerful geniuses are? If it wasn't for Luo Bingyue, I would really want to pinch him to death. He's simply too ignorant. I can't help but want to beat him up. Forget it. I can only endure. Everyone was speechless at Lin Ye's ignorance and arrogance. This kind of ignorant arrogance made people want to beat him up. Good, very good. For the sake of Luo Bingyue and Luo Province, I'll spare your life. However, you have to lie down for a while. This is the price for your arrogance. Li Xingqian's tone was extremely cold as he activated his Xiantian fourth stage cultivation. Although he wouldn't kill Lin Yi in front of the Luo family, he could teach Lin Yi a lesson. When he spoke, he looked at Luo Bingyue, wanting to know how Luo Bingyue would react. Luo Bingyue was a little angry. She didn't expect Lin Yi to be such an idiot and cause trouble for her. Just as she was about to speak, she was interrupted by Lin Yi. Sometimes there are things. It has to be solved by me. After speaking, he stepped forward and appeared in front of Luo Bingyue. When he was 5 meters away, Lin Yi didn't stop. Instead, he directly walked over. You're courting death. Li Xingqian was enraged by Lin Ye's disregard. With his Xiantian four-stage cultivation, he threw a punch at Lin Yi. With his cultivation, even if he didn't use martial techniques or weapons, he could still severely injure someone of the same level. Not to mention, Lin Yi was just an ordinary person without a martial soul and cultivation. After this punch, even if Lin Yi didn't die, he would be bettered in for a few months. I told you, I can crush you to death with one finger. Lin Yi ignored Li Xingqian's punch. Looking at the fist that was distorting the air, he smiled faintly and continued walking. This scene made all the elites extremely excited, because in the next moment, Lin Yi would be crippled. Luo Bingyue couldn't make a move. She could see that Li Xingqian only wanted to injure Lin Yi, but didn't dare to kill Lin Yi. Luo Province had the best pills to heal Lin Ye's injuries. At the same time, this was a good chance to teach Lin Yi a lesson, or make Lin Yi give up on her and leave Luo Province. Just as everyone saw that Li Xingqian was about to cripple Lin Yi casually raised his hand and pointed a finger at the fist that was distorting the air. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as the fist and finger collided. Immediately after, a figure was thrown out like a kite with a short string, landing 20 meters away. The short exchange ended in an instant. However, all the sky prides were stunned. Even an elite like Luo Qingcheng was shocked. Luo Bingyue's cold and beautiful face was also filled with shock. Because the person who flew out wasn't Lin Yi, but the #1 genius of Yueqing City, the son of Yueqing City's mayor, with a Xiantian fourth-stage spiritual pulse Li Xingchen. Many people rubbed their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. If you weren't in Luo province, you would already be dead. Perhaps you're not even qualified for me to take action. Sometimes, being a genius isn't enough. Lin Ye's calm voice broke the silence. Everyone reacted. Li Xingchen was indeed defeated by Lin Yi with a single finger. The elites present weren't fools. They could see that Lin Yi had shown mercy. If Lin Yi wanted to kill Li Xingchen, just as Lin Yi had said, he could crush Li Xingchen with a single finger. Lin Yi turned and walked towards Luo Bingwei. He reached out and pulled Luo Bingwei out of the square. At this moment, Luo Bingwei had recovered from her shock, but she didn't realize that Lin Yi was holding her hand. When she finally reacted, her face was flushed red. "Brother-in-law, you're so cool." In her seat, Luo Xing's eyes were wide open. Seeing Lin Yi and Luo Bingwei leaving, she called out sweetly. Her petite figure quickly ran in the direction of Lin Yi and Luo Bingwei. Shock. In the small square of Luo province, other than shock, there was only shock. Everyone was in shock. Didn't they say that Lin Yi was poor? Didn't they say that Lin Yi didn't have a martial soul? Didn't they say that Lin Yi didn't have a cultivation base? Didn't they say that Lin Yi was a good-for-nothing? How could all of this be fake? Rumors couldn't be completely believed. They had caused someone's death. Li Xingchen was the person who had been harmed by the rumors. If Lin Yi was a good-for-nothing, then what was Li Xingchen? What were the so-called geniuses present? The gathering ended very quickly. The geniuses present left one by one. They were too embarrassed to stay. In their hearts, that ordinary figure and those indifferent words were forever engraved in their hearts. It turned out that Lin Yi wasn't ignorant or arrogant. It was just that they weren't as good as Lin Yi. For a moment, countless geniuses had the urge to cry. Acting cool in front of a low-profile evildoer was like a clown prancing around in front of others. Brother-in-law, so you were lying to me. If you didn't have a martial soul and cultivation base, how could you have defeated Li Xingchen so easily? Luo Xing quickly caught up with Lin Yi and Luo Bingwei. Seeing Luo Xing catch up, Luo Bingwei hurriedly shook off Lin Ye's hand. She couldn't hide the blush on her face. The only thing she could do was to become colder and more distant. The curious Luo Xing looked at Lin Yi and asked. This was also what Luo Bingwei was curious about. It was also the question in her heart. It was also the question in everyone's mind. I really don't have a martial soul. I really didn't cultivate in the past. I only started cultivating after reading the Luo water scripture. Lin Yi smiled. He wasn't lying. It was true that he didn't have a martial soul. It was also true that he didn't have a martial soul. It was just that he didn't have a martial soul in the past. What's your current cultivation base? Why can't I tell? Luo Xing pouted her red lips and asked. She didn't believe Lin Ye's words. It was unbelievable that one could cultivate without a martial soul. Moreover, Lin Yi had only been in Luo province for half a month. How could he cultivate the Luo water scripture in half a month? Only Houtian Stage 9. Lin Yi said indifferently. The Houtian Stage 9 was only one step away from the Xiantian stage. It would take some time to reach the Xiantian stage. He would have to wait until Shengwu College to break through and step into the Xiantian stage. Only? Luo Xing was angry. She was also at the Houtian Stage 9 and had cultivated for nearly 10 years. If what Lin Yi said was true, then no one would believe that Lin Yi had reached the Houtian Stage 9 in just half a month. How could there be such a heaven-defying person in this world? Luo Bingwei was curious but didn't say anything. She had been listening to the conversation between Luo Xing and Lin Yi. When she heard Lin Ye's words, she was shocked to the extreme. Show me the Luo water scripture. Luo Bingwei couldn't bear the shock in her heart and asked. Although she didn't cultivate the Luo water scripture, she could see some knack for Lin Ye's cultivation method and was sure that Lin Yi hadn't really cultivated for half a month. The Luo water scripture is incomplete. Lin Yi waved his hand and displayed the Luo water scripture's cultivation method. It is indeed the Luo water scripture. How do you know that the Luo water scripture is incomplete? Luo Binghua looked at the cultivation method displayed by Lin Yi and was sure that Lin Yi had indeed cultivated for less than half a month. In less than half a month, Lin Yi's cultivation had reached the Houtian Stage 9. It was simply a miracle. Even she, who had started cultivating at the age of 5, had spent 5 years cultivating to the Houtian Stage 9. She cultivated in the incomplete volume of the Heavenly Frost Art and didn't cultivate the Luo Water Scripture. However, she knew that her family only had the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture and was considered incomplete. She never expected that Lin Yi would know about it. I discovered it when I was studying the Luo Water Scripture. The Luo family only has the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture. Lin Yi didn't hide it and answered. At the same time, he wanted to know if the Luo family only had the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture or if they didn't take out the second volume. The Luo family only has the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture. If there is a second volume, the Luo family's overall strength is definitely not limited to the Yinshui kingdom. Luo Binghua knew the meaning behind Lin Yi's words. However, the Luo family only had the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture and no second volume. If there was a second volume, the Luo family would definitely be more powerful and even stand at the peak of the entire Sky Sea realm. Indeed, the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture can at most be cultivated to the creation realm. It is impossible to break through the peak of the creation realm and reach the realm of unity of heaven and man. Lin Yi nodded. From the looks of it, the Luo family only had the first volume of the Luo Water Scripture. Then, where was the second volume of the Luo Water Scripture? If one really only cultivated the Luo Water Scripture, the highest cultivation realm they could reach was the creation realm. They wouldn't be able to break through to the higher heaven realm. This was the advantage and disadvantage of the cultivation technique. With a powerful cultivation technique, one's future would be greater. Without a powerful cultivation technique, no matter how high one's talent was, they would remain stagnant. Brother-in-law, how long did you take to comprehend the Luo Water Scripture? Luo Xing asked curiously. At that moment, she already understood that her brother-in-law was very monstrous and terrifying. However, everyone was deceived by his appearance. If they treated him as trash, they wouldn't even know how they died. Chapter 10. 3 days' time. Lin Yi wanted Luo Xing to loosen her grip. But Luo Xing had no intention of letting go, which made Lin Yi helpless. Of course, Luo Xing was also a super beautiful girl, just like her sister Luo Binghua. Luo Binghua glared fiercely at Luo Xing, but Luo Xing made a face at Luo Binghua. Tomorrow, Shengwu College. Don't forget, Luo Binghua couldn't do anything about her sister. She said a few words to Lin Yi and left. A faint fragrance wafted into Lin Yi's nose. She was arrogant, cold, and beautiful as always. Brother-in-law, see you tomorrow. Luo Xing also bid farewell to Lin Yi when she saw her sister leave. Lin Yi looked at Luo Xing's back and couldn't help but smile. The two sisters looked exactly the same, but their personalities were completely opposite. After pondering for a while, he returned to the Green Leaf residence. Cultivation, other than cultivation, there was still cultivation. What? Lin Yi from the Luo family defeated Li Xingchen with just one finger? Hodian 9th stage defeated Xiantian 4th stage Li Xingchen. Didn't he have no martial spirit and cultivation? How can he be so monstrous? Li Xingchen can be crushed to death with just one finger. He is indeed arrogant and overbearing, but he does have some skills. He is so low-key that it's scary. If he didn't want to, no one would know that he is so terrifying. He directly treated all the geniuses as trash. Cloud Water City, news spread out one after another. Lin Yi's reputation was even greater. Compared to the people who looked down on him before, they were now more shocked by his low profile and monstrous talent. Previously, he was looked down upon by others, saying that he was trash without a martial spirit. Now, he had become a terrifying monster. The change before and after gave people a strong impact. The unluckiest one was naturally Li Xingqian. The number one genius of Moon City had actually been defeated by Lin Yi with a single finger. As I said, the Luo family will never marry Luo Bingyue to a waste. So this is an extraordinary genius. The Luo family is indeed not bad. When the other families in Cloud Water Grand City received this news, they were also incomparably shocked. Originally, they had been gloating over Lin Ye's disgust at the Luo family, but now they were envious of the Luo family. However, not many people knew that Lin Yi had defeated Li Xingqian. Of course, the fact that Lin Yi did not have a martial spirit was known to a limited number of people. After all, Cloud Water City was too big. The Luo family was bustling with noise and excitement. As one of the top 10 families in Cloud Water City, the Luo family had more than 10,000 members. At this moment, the most discussed topic was Lin Ye's defeat of Li Xingqian with a single finger. In the past, everyone knew that Lin Yi did not have a martial spirit and cultivation, but they did not dare to talk about Lin Yi because he was Luo Bingyue's future husband. Coupled with the influence of Luo Bingyue and Luo Bingyue, even if the Luo family members looked down on Lin Yi, they did not dare to say it out loud. It could be said that the people who hated Lin Yi the most in Cloud Water City were none other than the members of the Luo family. Because of Lin Ye's existence, the Luo family had become the laughingstock of Cloud Water City. Now, Lin Yi had defeated the number one genius of Moonlight City, Li Xingqian, with a single finger. This had completely overturned the image of Lin Yi as trash in their hearts. If Lin Yi was trash, then not many people could be considered geniuses. He was happy because Lin Yi wasn't trash. Excited because Lin Yi might have the same terrifying talent as Luo Bingyue. If that was the case, then the Luo family would have two super geniuses. I knew it wouldn't be that simple. How could the person who appeared in the agreement from 800 years ago be an ordinary person? When the Grand Elder of the Luo family heard Lin Ye's words, his face lit up with excitement. There was also a trace of luck. If they had not agreed to Lin Ye's request, then no one would know what the Luo family situation would be like now. Luo Qingsheng immediately reported what had happened today to the Grand Elder of the Luo family. At that time, he indeed had no cultivation. This point could be concealed from others, but it could not be concealed from my divine soul. I didn't expect that in less than half a month he could actually reach the peak of the 9th stage from the Hotian first stage. It's simply unimaginable. Could it be a saint body? The Grand Elder said. He had a mysterious, innate ability that was a pair of eyes. He could see through things that others could not see through. Even if someone was hiding their cultivation, he could see through it with a glance. At that time, he had indeed seen that Lin Yi had no cultivation. In other words, Lin Yi had quickly rushed from the first stage to the 9th stage while practicing the Luo Water Sutra. In less than half a month, no one would believe it. It's not a saint body. The Grand Elder shook his head. Even if it was a saint body, it could not be so heaven-defying. For a time, several elders ruled out various possibilities, but they were all denied by their own ideas. In the end, they could only leave it unsettled. In any case, a bad thing had turned into a good thing. This point made them happy. The next day, Lin Yi finished practicing. He slightly tidied up his clothes and walked out. When he came out, there were already people waiting for him. Luo Bingyue, Luo Xing, and a young girl Lin Yi did not know. The three of them were already waiting in the pavilion outside the Green Leaf residence. Seeing this, Lin Yi hurriedly stepped forward. Brother-in-law, good morning. Luo Xing was still so cute and beautiful. Seeing Lin Yi, she cleverly called him brother-in-law. Greetings, young Master Lin. Another young girl slightly saluted Lin Yi. Luo Bingyue did not speak, but gently nodded her head as a greeting. But this also made Lin Yi feel inconceivable. For Luo Bingyue, this was really rare. Brother-in-law, she is Luo Ling. She is a genius from a branch of the Luo family. She has a 9th grade spiritual vein. This time, she will also follow us to Shengwu College. Luo Xing opened her mouth and introduced Luo Ling. This time, With the status of Luo Bingyue and the Luo family, Luo Bingyue could bring 3 people to Shengwu College to practice. The first was Lin Yi, the second was Luo Xing and the third was Luo Ling. Let's go. Luo Bingyue simply and coldly said one word, then directly walked out of Luo province. Lin Yi, Luo Xing, and Luo Ling followed behind. When they arrived at the gate of Luo province, someone had already prepared a flying car for them. Flying cars were the most common means of transportation in this world. Flying cars were generally 4 meters long, 2 meters wide, and about 1.5 meters tall. Generally, they could seat 5 people. There were all kinds of flying cars, and they were also divided into different grades. However, in the city, flying cars were not allowed to fly. They could only travel on the streets. Of course, only flying cars of special people were qualified to fly in the city. Lin Yi learned that the most common flying cars in Yinshui City cost at least 100,000 gold coins. The more expensive ones cost millions or even tens of millions of gold coins. Those were the flying cars of the rich. Gold coins were the most common currency. An average person's monthly salary was 3,000 gold coins. The higher the cultivation, the higher the salary. However, those with high cultivation went out to do missions and hunt demonic beasts to earn gold coins. Yun 100001. This was Luo Bingyue's flying car. This was an A5 grade flying car, and its price was about 2 million. I'll drive the flying car. Luo Xing opened the flying car's door and bent down to enter. She had a sweet smile on her face. Luo Ling, who was beside her, was also very quick-witted and quickly followed behind Luo Xing. The two sat in the front row of the flying car. The flying car had a total of 2 rows. Luo Xing and Luo Ling sat in the front row. Then, Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue could only sit in the back row. The two of them naturally would not separate Luo Bingyue and Lin Yi. Lin Yi opened the door of the back row of the flying car and made a gesture of invitation with a smile on his face. Luo Bingyue's expression did not change in the slightest. She was as cold and beautiful as ever. She bent down to enter the flying car. The flying car roared and then rushed away on the street. In the flying car, the slightest vibration could not be felt. Through the crystal window, the buildings and things on both sides could be seen passing by quickly. Bingyue, does Shengwu College have martial arts techniques and weapons? No one spoke in the flying car. Lin Yi was sitting next to a beautiful iceberg goddess. Although she was his future wife, he was still a little nervous. After a while, Lin Yi opened his mouth and broke the silence in the flying car. Shengwu College is one of the 4 major forces in Yinshui Kingdom. Of course, there are martial arts techniques and weapons, but you have to work hard to get them. By the way, I have something to tell you later. Luo Bingyue nodded. This was the first time Lin Yi heard her speak so much. Okay, Lin Yi knew that Luo Bingyue misunderstood his meaning. He wanted to ask if Shengwu College would provide martial arts techniques and weapons for their disciples for free. If not, then they would have to buy them themselves. Hearing that Luo Bingyue had something to say to him, he could not help but be curious. If he did not say it now, it should be to avoid Luo Xing and Luo Ling. The flying car moved forward quickly. Luo Province was located in the most central area of Yinshui City. Shengwu College was close to the edge of Yinshui City. The distance between the two places was 2,000 li. After 4 hours of fast travel, they finally arrived at Shengwu College. Lin Yi sighed. Fortunately, there was a flying car. If they walked, it would take less than half a month. Shengwu College was built in the easternmost part of Yinshui City. It was built against the mountains. The area within 100 li belonged to Shengwu College. It was one of the most prosperous places in Yinshui City. Luo Xing drove the flying car to Shengwu College's signboard and stopped. There were all kinds of flying cars here. Although Luo Bingyue's flying car was not the most expensive or luxurious here, it was still very good. Seeing the flying car arrive, it immediately attracted the attention of countless martial artists and Heaven's Prides. Hey, A5 flying car, number 100001. It's not simple. It should be one of the top 10 families. A 5. Although it's not the best flying car, this number is definitely one of the best. I don't know who's in the flying car. It should be an expert of the college. Just this flying car alone is more than an ordinary person can earn in a lifetime without eating or drinking. Wow, a goddess, an absolute goddess. The arrival of Luo Bingyue's flying car made countless martial artists and heaven's prides at the college gate talk about it. For a moment, they were all curious about who the owner of the flying car was. Chapter 11. Luo Xing'er walked out of the flying car under countless amazed gazes. She was wearing a black dress, a tall and exquisite figure, and a lovely smile on her beautiful face. Although she was only 16 years old, she was already a complete beauty. There was no lack of beauties in front of Shengwu College, as well as the beautiful female disciples of the college. They were all one in a million. However, compared to Luo Xing'er, they were still a little lacking. What was even more shocking was that after Luo Xing'er got out of the car, Luo Ling'er also got out. Although Luo Ling'er was not as beautiful as Luo Xing'er, she was still one in a million. After Luo Ling'er, Luo Bingyue bowed and walked out of the flying car. Luo Bingyue was known as the #1 goddess of Yinshui City. She was cold, arrogant, and unapproachable. She was like an ice goddess. When the three beautiful girls gathered together, it made people's hearts beat faster. Luo Bingyue, the #1 genius of Luo province. She has a body of ice, and she is a genius with an emperor body. The #1 goddess of Yinshui Kingdom. I finally see her. The other one looks exactly like her. Her name is Luo Xing. She is her twin sister. What about the other one? Shengwu College recruited 2 geniuses with emperor body this year. One is called Dongfang Qing, and the other is Luo Bingyue. As a disciple of Shengwu College, I am so lucky. I'm excited to be in the same college as the #1 goddess of Yinshui Kingdom. Everyone was talking in front of the college gate. These people were either disciples of the college or people who lived nearby. Without exception, after seeing Luo Bingyue and the other 2 girls, they were all excited. Some beautiful girls looked at Luo Bingyue and the other 2 girls with envy. Just as everyone was in awe, another person walked out of the flying car. When they saw this person appear, everyone was curious, but even more so, they were jealous. Because this was a young man, an ordinary-looking youngster, but this ordinary-looking youngster was sitting in the same flying car as Luo Bingyue. From his position, it was obvious that he was sitting with Luo Bingyue. Such an ordinary young man was actually sitting together with the goddess in their hearts. There were also 2 beautiful girls, Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er. It would be strange if they weren't envious. Who is he? He's actually sitting with Luo Bingyue. Damn it. Everyone's hearts were filled with questions and anger. They couldn't wait to find a secluded place and beat up this ordinary young man. If possible, they wanted to make this young man disappear from this world. His name is Linyi, Luo Bingyue's fiancé. It's said that without a martial spirit, he has no cultivation. Someone recognized Linyi and opened his mouth to speak. Hearing that Linyi was Luo Bingyue's fiancé without a martial spirit and cultivation, this news was like a bomb that exploded among countless people. Some people were heartbroken, while others were indignant. However, all of this had nothing to do with Linyi and the others. Linyi walked out of the flying car and looked at the plaque that was 100 meters wide and 50 meters high. He was extremely shocked. On the plaque, the words Shengwu College were vigorous and powerful. It was as if the words were about to come alive. The huge momentum gave people a strong pressure. This is Shengwu College. Looking at the signboard, Linyi took a deep breath and said, "That's right. Brother-in-law, someone is talking about you." Luo Xing'er's small face had a sly smile. Seeing this, Luo Bingyue naturally knew what her younger sister was thinking. She couldn't help but stare fiercely at Luo Xing'er. Then, she walked towards the entrance of Shengwu College. Linyi didn't pay attention to Luo Xing'er and also walked towards Shengwu College. Seeing Linyi and Luo Bingyue's appearance, Luo Xing'er knew that she wouldn't succeed. She had to give up and quickly chased after them with Luo Ling'er. The group of four entered Shengwu College under countless envious and jealous gazes. Shengwu College. Although it was a college, it was completely a small world inside. Just when Luo Bingyue had just entered the college, a student from Shengwu College came and led Luo Bingyue and the other three to go through the formalities. This student was also a heaven's pride in Luo province. He had only entered the college for a few years, but now he was already an extraordinary powerhouse. Bingyue, the college has already arranged everything. You will live in the Black Ice Palace. You are a true disciple. Lin Yi, Xing, and Ling can only be ordinary disciples. However, if you have the chance to become a true disciple in the future, you'll have to fight for it with your own ability. Luo Feng had already surpassed the Xiantian realm and became a powerhouse in the spirit maneuvering realm. However, even with his talent and cultivation strength, he could only be in the lower middle class among the students of Shengwu College. Understood. Lin Yi nodded. In this world, there was no free lunch. At the same time, it was impossible for a free lunch to fall from the sky. If you want to become a powerhouse, you have to work hard for everything. Even if you entered Shengwu College, it was impossible to give you too many resources. He naturally understood this point. The college will give a huge amount of resources to a true disciple. Under normal circumstances, they will not be allowed to go out to do missions. However, ordinary disciples are different. They need to go out to do missions and hunt monsters. Of course, even if the college does not require disciples to go out to hunt monsters, these disciples will still go out to hunt monsters, earn resources, and enter the secret territory to look for treasures. The college will reward the disciples according to their contributions. Luo Feng did not know that Lin Yi had cultivation strength, so he somewhat looked down on Lin Yi. However, for Luo Bingyue and her family, he could not go too far. Thank you, Brother Feng. Although Luo Xing was young, she could hear that Luo Feng looked down on Lin Yi. Therefore, she opened her mouth and thanked Luo Feng. Luo Bingyue also nodded. Then, she led Lin Yi and the others in the direction of the Profound Ice Palace. The Profound Ice Palace would be the place where she would live and cultivate in Shengwu College. The Profound Ice Palace was located in the deepest part of Cebu Gakuen. The entire Cebu Gakuen had a total of 108 palaces. Only true disciples were qualified to live and cultivate in these palaces. This was also a symbol of status and talent. Those who could live in these palaces were either geniuses with emperor physiques or super powerhouses of Shengwu College. After an hour, Lin Yi and the others arrived at the Profound Ice Palace. The palace was very wide, 1 mile long and 1 mile wide. In other words, everything within 1 mile belonged to the Profound Ice Palace. Although it was called the Profound Ice Palace, it was actually a combination of 3 pavilions and a palace. The other places were either gardens or ponds. Here it had everything. The spiritual qi is so dense. It's several times denser than the spiritual qi in Luo province. Luo Xing said happily, looking around with her beautiful eyes. There's a spiritual vein under Shengwu College. Not only that, there's also a giant dragon vein. Luo Bingyue said. She knew much more than Luo Xing. Lin Yi knew nothing and just listened. No wonder. Luo Ling suddenly understood. There were dragon veins and spiritual veins under Shengwu College, so the spiritual qi was naturally dense. Moreover, Shengwu College also had a powerful spiritual gathering formation that gathered the spiritual qi around it. Xing and Ling choose a place to cultivate. Lin Yi, I have something to tell you. Luo Bingyue ignored Luo Xing and Luo Ling. She then walked toward the palace. This palace was hers, and only she was qualified to live in it. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment, and then left with Luo Bingyue. What is it? Say it. In the palace, Lin Yi asked. On the flying car, Luo Bingyue said that she had something to tell him. He didn't know what Luo Bingyue wanted to know. To be honest, he also had something to ask Luo Bingyue. Make it clear first. What I want to talk to you has nothing to do with the Luo family. Since I promised to marry you 10 years later, I won't go back on my word. but I'm very curious about something. I hope you can tell me about it. Is that okay? Luo Bingwa pondered for a moment and said. While speaking, she looked at Lin Yi with her beautiful eyes. Okay. Lin Yi nodded without hesitation and agreed. This was the first time he saw Luo Bingwa look at him and talk. Do you know about the agreement from 800 years ago? Luo Bingwa asked. Her eyes were full of expectation. I don't know. I can tell you that I came to Luo province because Master asked me to. Before I left, Master kept asking me to study. Some time ago, Master asked me to leave. He gave me an animal skin scroll and a wooden box and asked me to exchange these two things for the Luo family's Luo water scripture and you. He said you were my wife. What's on the animal skin scroll? What's in the wooden box? Lin Yi told her everything he knew. Of course, these are not important and would not affect him. You can't cultivate, and he asked you to leave? This is the animal skin scroll and the wooden box. Luo Bingwa looked at Lin Yi and listened to Lin Yi. From Lin Yi's eyes and expression, she could tell that Lin Yi was not lying. After listening to him, she was extremely shocked. Then, she took out the animal skin scroll and the wooden box from a bag and handed them to Lin Yi. Master said that without a martial soul, it doesn't mean that you can't cultivate. I really don't know about that agreement. If that agreement binds you, I can tell you that the agreement doesn't count. When I go back, I'll explain to Master that I made the decision. Lin Yi took the animal skin scroll and the wooden box. He was not in a hurry to look at them. After pondering for a moment, he said to Luo Bingwa. Now, he finally understood that the Luo family and Master must have made some kind of agreement to let Luo Bingwa marry him. If this binds Luo Bingwa, he could announce that the agreement did not count. As for Master, he would go back and explain. To be honest, Luo Bingwa was indeed beautiful, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. However, he didn't want to bind her because of a promise. Even if Luo Bingwa married him in the future, it wouldn't be what she wanted, nor would it be what he wanted. Really? Luo Bingwa could not help but be surprised when she heard Lin Yi's words. She was devastatingly beautiful and was as beautiful as a goddess. Could Lin Yi really let her go? Of course, I, Lin Yi, am not a peerless genius, but I've read a lot. I know that Theta Scarabii is precious. A man should treat others with sincerity. Bingwa, to be honest, you're the most beautiful woman I've seen since I came to Cloudwater City. I also understand what the book meant by beauty. However, I don't want to bind you because of an agreement. This is not what I want, nor is it what you want. In the past, the principle in my heart was that no one else should touch my things. This time, I'm not selfish. You're a super genius and devastatingly beautiful. You have your freedom. Lin Yi said, lightly with a smile. Chapter 12. Luo Bingwa was shocked by Lin Yi's words. Lin Yi always surprised her. Although what Lin Yi said was right, Luo Bingwa didn't know whether she should be happy or not. But for some reason, she couldn't be happy. Wasn't freedom what she needed the most during this period of time? However, Lin Yi had already given her freedom, but when she turned around and saw Lin Yi enter a pavilion, she relaxed a little. She operated the heavenly ice skill to calm herself down and no longer let what had just happened affect her state of mind. Mister, you are too deceitful. Lin Yi left the palace. He felt a little relaxed, but at the same time, he felt a little pressure. He felt relaxed because he didn't bind Luo Bingwa because of the agreement that he didn't even know about. He felt pressure because he brought pressure to the Luo family and the outside world. Taking a deep breath, he chose one of the remaining pavilions and walked in. He sat cross-legged and operated the 3,000 heavenly Tao to calm his state of mind. It had to be said that the 3,000 heavenly Tao was a good cultivation method for calming one's mind. It could strengthen one's mind, make one calm down, and make one's mind more agile. It was not comparable to the cultivation methods of martial artists. After his state of mind calmed down, he began to understand Shengwu College. Although he entered Shengwu College with Luo Bingwa, he also became an ordinary disciple of Shengwu College. Ordinary disciples also had a lot of benefits. Otherwise, how could the geniuses of the 72 cities of the Yunshui kingdom squeeze their heads to enter Shengwu College? After becoming a disciple of Shengwu College, one could get a storage bag that was 1 meter in length, width, and height. One could also get a third-level top-grade longsword, common cultivation methods, and martial arts techniques. The most important thing was the Jade Slip, which contained the information and precautions of Shengwu College. This Jade Slip allowed one to grasp the most basic knowledge of a martial artist. Only those in the Xiantian realm can hunt demonic beasts. Hunting demonic beasts, increasing my combat experience, increasing my strength, and earning gold coins. Looks like I have to quickly raise my cultivation level to the Xiantian realm. After Lin Yi finished reading the information in the Jade Slip, he made an arrangement in his heart, and that was to raise his cultivation to the Xiantian realm. Only after reaching the Xiantian realm would he be able to go out of the city and hunt demon beasts to earn gold coins. At the same time, he also needed to practice the martial arts and body movements of Shengwu College. As for the cultivation method, he already had the Luo River scripture, so there was no need for him to cultivate the cultivation method of Shengwu College. One had to know that the Luo River scripture was a heaven-class cultivation method. Although it was only a low-class cultivation method, it was countless times better than the profound-class cultivation method of Shengwu College. This didn't mean that Shengwu College didn't have any heaven-class techniques. Shengwu College had heaven-class techniques, but only the core geniuses and powerhouses of Shengwu College were qualified to practice them. As for the other students, they could only practice mystic-class techniques. It was very difficult for them to come into contact with earth-class techniques. Top mystic class, Thunder Crash, sword technique. The sword was like a clap of thunder, sweeping through everything with the power of wind and thunder. The Thunder Crash sword technique had a total of 7 swords. If one cultivated to the 7th sword, the power of the 7th sword would be comparable to a mystic class peerless skill. Its power was simply invincible, and it was one of the most common martial arts techniques used by Xiantian realm martial artists. However, it was impossible to cultivate to the 7th sword. This was because, generally speaking, the Thunder Crash sword technique was cultivated at the Xiantian realm. After surpassing the Xiantian realm, one would cultivate more powerful and advanced martial arts techniques. There was no need to continue cultivating the Thunder Crash sword technique. The key reason was that the later stages of the Thunder Crash sword technique were very difficult to cultivate. It could be said that since the appearance of the Thunder Crash sword technique, no one had been able to cultivate to the 7th sword. It's powerful, but it's very difficult to cultivate. I'll just have to make do with it first. Lin Yi muttered to himself after carefully reading the Thunder Crash sword technique. After that, he looked through the body movements that Shengwu College gave to ordinary students. Mystic Class Peerless, Cool Breeze Shadow. Cool Breeze Shadow's main purpose was to increase a martial artist's speed and evasion in combat. When cultivated to a certain level, it could allow a martial artist to leap dozens of meters high and reach a distance of 100 meters. Human martial artists couldn't fly like flying demonic beasts unless they reached an extremely high level and could control the power of heaven and earth. Only then could they fly in the air. I'll cultivate the Luo Water Sutra during the day. I'll cultivate the Thunder Crash sword technique and Cool Breeze Shadow in the 9-fold space at night. Lin Yi decided, during this period of time, he would strive to improve his strength. This was because, after a while, the new disciples would go out to do missions and hunt demonic beasts. Following that, they would enter the Shengwu College's secret realm to train. 1 month later, all the new disciples of Shengwu College, except for the direct disciples, would go out to do missions or hunt demonic beasts. Firstly, it was to train the disciples of Shengwu College. Secondly, it was to contribute to mankind's resistance against demonic beasts. Thirdly, it was to earn gold coins to buy cultivation resources. 3 months later, all the new disciples of Shengwu College would enter the Shengwu College's primary secret realm to train. Therefore, there couldn't be the slightest delay during this period of time. During the day, he would cultivate the Luo Water Sutra and improve his cultivation base. At night, he would cultivate the Thunder Crash sword technique and Cool Breeze Shadow in the ninefold space. The time ratio in the ninefold space was different from the outside world. 4 days in the ninefold space was only 1 day outside. The time ratio was 4:1. This was one of the nature-defying aspects of the ninefold space. When Lin Yi broke the first seal, the time ratio was still 2:1. When he broke the second seal, the time ratio was 4:1. He didn't dare to imagine if the time ratio would be 8:1 when he broke the third seal. If that was the case, it would be terrifying. Next, Lin Yi began to cultivate seriously. Luo Bingyue was a true disciple. She didn't need to go out to do tasks, nor did she need to obtain resources. Since Lin Yi left her palace, Luo Bingyue had been in closed-door cultivation and didn't leave the palace for even half a step. Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er both knew that they had to go out to do tasks and hunt demon beasts, so they also stepped up their cultivation. Time passed day by day. 1 month passed quickly. Lin Yi's Thunder Crash sword technique had also reached the level of the third sword technique within a month. The Cool Breeze Shadow had also reached the realm of Deshang. Of course, it was 1 month in the outside world, but Lin Yi had been cultivating for 4 months, because he cultivated in the ninefold space at night. His cultivation base had also successfully reached the Xiantian first stage. Traces of Zhen Yuan appeared in his body, transforming from strength into Zhen Yuan. Luo Xing'er had also reached the Xiantian first stage. Luo Ling'er was originally at the Xiantian third stage. Now, she had reached the peak of the Xiantian third stage and was not far from the Xiantian fourth stage. Moreover, Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er both had been cultivating for a long time before coming to Xinwu College. Their strength was also very strong. On this day, Luo Ling'er and Luo Xing'er came to Lin Yi's pavilion. In fact, both of them came to Lin Yi's pavilion almost every day to chat with Lin Yi or exchange their cultivation experience. The three of them were very familiar with each other. Brother-in-law, Luo Xing'er didn't know that Lin Yi had canceled the agreement with Luo Bingyue. Lin Yi also didn't tell Luo Xing'er because there were some things that simply didn't need to be said. "Are the two of you ready?" Lin Yi asked with a smile. He had a good impression of these two little girls, Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er. "Yes, we've been ready for a long time. Let's go. We can finally go out and hunt demon beasts." Luo Xing'er was very happy. Although she lived in Yinshui City, she had never left the city and had never dealt with demon beasts. Now that she had reached the Xiantian realm, she could go out and hunt demon beasts. Naturally, she was very happy. The other disciples of the college have already arrived outside the city. We just need to leave Yinshui City by today. Everyone has to hunt at least one demon beast with the same cultivation base as them and one demon beast with a higher cultivation base than them. Luo Ling'er said. Compared to Luo Xing'er, she was less talkative. Her strength was also much higher than Luo Xing'er. According to cultivation base, among the three, Luo Ling'er's cultivation base was the highest at the Xiantian third stage. Coupled with powerful martial skills and spirit tools, she could fight against the Xiantian fourth stage master. "Then let's go." Lin Yi stood up and said. Finished speaking, he walked towards the outside of the pavilion. Seeing Lin Yi like this, Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er hurriedly followed. They knew that Luo Bingyue had been in closed-door practice and didn't need to hunt demon beasts. Naturally, it didn't need to greet her. An hour later, the three arrived in front of the city wall. After registering, they left Yinshui City. Leaving the protection of Yinshui City was a real danger zone. They could encounter powerful demon beasts at any time, so the three became very careful. Lin Yi's perception was incomparably terrifying with the power of a Xiantian level 20 spirit sense. Even if he didn't use his eyes, he could see everything 100 meters away. In other words, even if separated by a wall, he could use his perception to control the situation on the other side of the wall. Unleashing his full power, nothing within 500 meters could escape his senses. Be careful. Xing'er will attack. Ling'er will protect you. I'll hold the line. After leaving the city for 30 li, Lin Yi said to Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er, Yinshui City was the capital of the Yinshui Kingdom. It was the center of power and wealth. It was also the place where the strong gathered. The demon beasts within a radius of 100 li had already been killed by the warriors. This area was a safe zone. Only after reaching 100 li, there was a temporary resting point. After that, they would enter the danger zone where demon beasts could appear at any time. That's it. Luo Xing'er knew Lin Ye's strength. When he was at the Hotian 9th stage, he easily defeated the Xiantian 4th stage Li Xingchen with a finger. He was the strongest among the three. Although Luo Ling'er didn't know Lin Ye's strength, she didn't have any objection since Luo Xing'er agreed. After making the decision, the three sped up and ran. The distance of 100 li was covered in half an hour. Then the three booked a room at the temporary resting point. They could temporarily rest here and replenish their necessities. After arranging everything, the three didn't rest, but directly ran towards the distance. After the three left the temporary resting point, a young man and a middle-aged man looked at the direction the three left. The young man's eyes were full of malice and hatred. Brother Yao, that is Lin Yi. As long as we kill Lin Yi, leave the two women alive. The young man said hatefully. Chapter 13. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh, rumble. In the deep forest, three silhouettes were attacking a yellow rank level 5 iron-armored beast. Sword light flashed, and the silhouettes moved freely. The beast's body was as hard as iron, but sword wounds and blood wounds kept appearing on its body. The injured iron-armored beast became more and more violent. The iron-armored beast was famous for its defense. Although it was yellow rank level 5, humans of the same rank might not be able to break through its defense. It was basically impossible to kill it alone. Even Lin Yi and the other two could only work together to attack it. After half an hour, the iron-armored beast finally fell. Within a 1-mile radius, the iron-armored beast was razed to the ground. Countless trees were broken, and the battlefield was incomparably tragic. It finally fell. Ling, take this iron-armored beast to complete the mission. Lin Yi performed a cycle and said to Luo Ling'er. Luo Ling'er nodded and skillfully dissected the iron-armored beast. There were many treasures on the beast's body. The meat could be made into a delicious meal, the bones could be made into weapons, and the fur could be made into expensive armor. The most important thing was the beast's core. The core was the beast's essence. Of course, the beast's essence blood was also very precious. However, only high-level beast's essence blood was useful. Normally, warriors would collect the beast's fur, core, and some bones when hunting. In a moment, Luo Ling'er finished collecting. Brother-in-law, how long have we been out? Luo Xing'er asked Lin Yi after resting beside Lin Yi. Today is the 9th day. Lin Yi thought for a moment and answered Luo Xing. The three of them had already been outside the city for 9 days. In these 9 days, the three of them had been constantly hunting beasts. Relying on Lin Ye's terrifying divine sense, his perception was astonishing. All the demonic beasts within a radius of 500 meters were within his perception. In this way, every movement of the demonic beasts was under Lin Ye's control, and he could choose to hunt them individually. In the beginning, the three of them chose the lowest level, yellow rank level 1. This was also for safety reasons. After all, it was everyone's first time hunting a demonic beast, and they couldn't afford to have any accidents. In a battle with demonic beasts, an accident would result in casualties. On the first day, the three of them only hunted yellow class level 1 beasts to familiarize themselves with their battle techniques. On the second day, the three of them hunted a level 2 yellow class beast. On the third day, the three of them hunted a yellow rank level 3 beast. On the fourth day, the three of them hunted a yellow rank level 4 beast. In the next few days, other than avoiding beasts above yellow rank level 5, the three of them killed all beasts they passed by, allowing the three of them to gain a lot of special battle techniques. At this moment, the three of them were no longer flowers in a greenhouse. Instead, they were true warriors who had experienced slaughter. On the 9th day, the three of them chose the iron-armored beast, which was powerful in both defense and offense. The iron-armored beast was the size of a flying car, and although its offense and defense were powerful, its speed was lacking. If they couldn't win, at least the three of them would have a greater chance of escaping. This was also one of the reasons why they chose the iron-armored beast. Young Master Lin, should we continue or return? Luo Linger happily came in front of Lin Yi. For this experience, a yellow class level 4 beast would have been enough to complete the mission. She didn't expect that it would break through to the Xiantian 4th stage during the battle. She had just hunted a yellow class level 5 beast, so her mission could be considered complete. I will return in a month. You two beasts are tired, so you can return first. Lin Yi said. Going back was also training, and staying here was also training. The only difference was that the training method was different. Moreover, training in battle was more useful than training in meditation. Not to mention, hunting demonic beasts also had rewards. When the time came, he could sell the demonic beast materials and buy powerful cultivation resources. With his strength, he could hunt a yellow class level 4 beast by himself. Of course, if he used absolute defense and invincible attack, even hunting a yellow class level 6 or 7 beast wouldn't be a problem. He could even retreat in front of any yellow class beast. However, he didn't dare to use these 2 trump cards rashly because he could only use them once a day and it would consume more than half of his spiritual sense. He naturally wouldn't use these life-saving methods. If he used these 2 methods and encountered danger, then he would be finished. Brother-in-law, then I will return first. These few days my harvest is not small. I will go back and increase my cultivation. Linger, what about you? Luo Xinger pondered for a moment and said, in these 9 days she had hunted a lot of demonic beasts. Moreover, during the battle, her cultivation had increased very quickly. She had to go back and quietly increase her cultivation realm and digest the battle experience. After saying that, he looked at Luo Linger. I will also go back. Luo Linger didn't speak much. She originally wanted to hunt demonic beasts with Lin Yi, but after seeing Luo Xinger go back, she didn't want to be alone with Lin Yi to avoid gossip. That's good. This place is not far from the rest point. As long as the 2 of you don't delay midway, you can rush back to the rest point in 2 hours. In this distance, the powerful demonic beasts have already been hunted down. Some low-level demonic beasts won't affect you. When Lin Yi heard that the 2 of them were going back, he nodded in satisfaction. Now, they were only 200 miles away from the rest point. 200 miles, 2 hours was enough. Moreover, if the 2 of them worked together, even if they encountered a yellow rank level 5 demonic beast, they would be able to escape unscathed. He could rest assured about their safety. Therefore, he didn't plan to send the 2 of them back. Brother-in-law, be careful. Luo Xinger greeted him and was about to get up and return to the temporary rest point with Luo Linger. Lin Yi looked at their backs and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. These few days, although the 3 of them hunted demonic beasts together, Lin Yi couldn't relax. He was worried that the 2 of them would be injured by the demonic beasts. If he was alone, even if he couldn't win, he still had a way to save his life. Now that the 2 of them had left, he could finally hunt demonic beasts with peace of mind. Another point was that if there was no one around, he could find a safe and secluded place to cultivate in the ninefold space at night. One must know that there were 12 hours in a night. 12 hours in the outside world was 2 days in the ninefold space. In other words, if he didn't cultivate at night, he would waste 2 days. With Luo Xinger and Luo Linger by his side, he naturally couldn't enter the 9-layer space. Otherwise, he would expose the secret of the 9-layer space. In the following days, Lin Yi went to a further place alone. He chose to hunt demonic beasts that were yellow rank level 5 and above. Only in the moment of life and death could he squeeze out his potential and quickly increase his strength, making himself stronger. During the day, he hunted demonic beasts, and at night, he found a safe and hidden place to enter the 9-layer space to cultivate. Time passed day by day. In half a month, The demonic beast materials in Lin Ye's 9-layer space were piled up like a mountain. These materials were basically yellow rank level 5 and level 6. There were also yellow rank level 7 materials. It could be said that except for the low-level demonic beast materials that he hunted with Luo Ling and Luo Xing'e, the rest were all level 5 and above. The battles continued, and his cultivation soared. In half a month's time, Lin Ye's cultivation reached the peak of Xiantian's second stage. The Thundercrash sword art had also reached the peak of the fourth sword and was not far from the fifth sword. Cool Breeze Shadow had already been cultivated to the point of perfection by him. On this day, Lin Ye had just encountered a yellow rank level 2 demonic beast and casually killed it. Just as he finished off this yellow rank level 2 demonic beast, he felt a trace of killing intent. And Lin Ye couldn't help but frown. Demonic beasts couldn't have killing intent. Only warriors had killing intent, and this killing intent was targeted at him. He hadn't been in Cloud Water Great City for long and didn't know many people, let alone offend anyone. Could it be that he was here to kill and steal? Lin Ye thought to himself. Soon, he didn't need to guess anymore. Two figures quickly appeared in front of him. Seeing one of them, Lin Ye suddenly realized that he had indeed offended this person before. This was Li Xingqian, the #1 genius of Moon City who had been defeated by him with a single finger. He didn't expect this guy to hold a grudge and actually come to deal with him in the demonic beast area. The other person, needless to say, was the helper that Li Xingqian had found. He admitted that he couldn't deal with Lin Ye, so he found a strong helper to deal with Lin Ye. In the city, no one dared to kill, but if they left the city and entered the wilderness, no one would care if they killed. Lin Ye. Li Xingqian looked at Lin Ye with hatred in his eyes. This made Lin Ye wonder if he had killed Li Xingqian's parents or humiliated his wife. Didn't he just defeat him once? There was no need to hate him so much. You're Li Xingqian, right? You're that genius from Moon City. Last time, I seem to have said that trash like you could be crushed to death with a single finger. Why? Do you want to try again today? Do you really have such a hobby? Lin Ye glanced at Li Xingqian intentionally with a smile on his face. At the same time, he waved the long sword in his hand, dissecting the yellow rank level 2 demonic beast he had just killed. He didn't know that Li Xingqian was extremely embarrassed and angry after being defeated by Lin Ye. Originally, with his strength and talent, he wanted to pursue Luo Bingyue, but he never thought that he would be defeated by Lin Ye with a single finger. That defeat was a huge blow to him. Lin Ye, if I don't tear you to pieces today, I'll call you Grandpa. Li Xingqian was furious. It would be strange if he had such a hobby. This time, he came here to take revenge. He wanted to kill Lin Ye in the wilderness without anyone knowing. At first, he planned to kill Lin Ye, then capture Luo Xing, and Luo Ling. Luo Xing was a girl as beautiful as her sister. Luo Ling was also a 1 in a million existence. Definitely didn't want to let go of these two beautiful girls. But thinking of the Luo family's strength and status, if Lin Ye and the other two disappeared, they would definitely investigate. If they found out that it was him, he would really be finished. As for dealing with Lin Ye alone, Luo province wouldn't offend Moon City for Lin Ye. In the end, he decided to let Luo Xing and Luo Ling go. Call me Grandpa? You're not qualified. Lin Ye shook his head. Trash like Li Xingqian really wasn't qualified to call him Grandpa. Senior brother Yao, let's do it. I'll add 1 million gold coins to the original price. Li Xingqian was so angry that his face turned red. He knew that if he continued to be long-winded with Lin Ye, he would definitely be angered to death by Lin Ye. This place was still very far from the 100,000 mountains. There weren't many powerful monsters, but there were many martial artists coming and going. If other martial artists saw this, it would be troublesome. He also paid a huge price to invite senior brother Yao. 2 million gold coins, hee. Kid, don't struggle. I'll give you a quick death. Senior brother Yao revealed a sinister smile and walked towards Lin Ye step by step. Chapter 14. In his eyes, Lin Ye was just a genius who had just reached the Xiantian realm. According to Li Xingqian's description, Lin Yi was only at Hotian ninth stage a while ago. Now that he was hunting in the wilderness, he should have just reached the Xiantian realm. Xingwu College had a rule that disciples could only come out after reaching the Xiantian realm. When he saw Lin Yi kill a level 2 yellow rank monster, he was even more certain that Lin Yi had just reached the Xiantian realm. He had already reached the peak of Xiantian's 7th stage and had been in the wilderness for 10 years. His combat experience was not something a newbie like Lin Yi could compare to. Perhaps, in his eyes, Lin Yi was only worth 2 million gold coins. As long as he killed Lin Yi, Li Xingchen would give him 2 million gold coins. You think you can kill me? Lin Yi looked at senior brother Yao and said indifferently. Xiantian's 7th stage was indeed good for him at the peak of Xiantian's 2nd stage. As he spoke, he waved the long sword in his hand, and the first sword of the Thunder Crash sword art burst out. A level 3 spiritual weapon was extremely sharp. The long sword brought along bursts of wind and thunder as it passed. Your long sword is not bad. It will belong to me when the time comes. Looking at the long sword in Lin Ye's hand, his eyes became greedy. A level 3 spiritual weapon was very good for a Xiantian realm martial artist. If one was not a Xingwu College disciple, it would cost at least 1 million gold coins to buy a level 3 spiritual weapon. Just as senior brother Yao was speaking, Lin Ye's long sword cut through the air and landed on senior brother Yao's shoulder. Immediately, blood splattered and senior brother Yao's body was pushed back a few meters. His face was filled with shock and anger. He never thought that a martial artist who had just reached the Xiantian realm would be able to injure him with a single sword. If he had not dodged in time, the sword would have landed between his eyebrows. He was shocked by Lin Ye's speed and the power of the Thunder Crash sword art. He had also practiced the Thunder Crash sword art before, but he had only reached the 3rd sword. He was very familiar with the Thunder Crash sword art. However, the first sword of the Thunder Crash sword art was able to injure him, which was beyond his expectations. Very good. Very good. It's already not bad that you were able to injure me. Then, let me show you what the Thunder Crash sword art is. Senior apprentice brother Yao's killing intent grew even stronger. He reached out and took out a long sword from his storage bag. It was also a 3rd order sword, but it was only a low-grade one. Compared to Lin Ye's top-grade sword, there was a huge difference. As soon as he finished speaking, he executed his movement technique, and the long sword in his hand slashed out streaks of sword light, causing gusts of wind and thunder to blow. Clang! 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 For a moment, Lin Yi and senior brother Yao were engaged in a fierce battle. Both of them were using Tier 3 spirit artifacts and were using the Thunderclap sword art. However, senior brother Yao's complexion became more and more unsightly because he discovered that his attack was weakened by more than half when it landed in front of Lin Yi. Moreover, Lin Ye's attack was incomparably terrifying. It was not something that a Xiantian novice could possess. What made him feel even more terrified was that Lin Yi actually used the 4th sword of the Thunderclap sword art. Xiantian's 7th stage is nothing more than this. Lin Ye's body was also left with 2 bloodstains, but they were not serious. The two had already exchanged more than 100 moves, and he already had a rough understanding of senior brother Yao's strength. If he used the 5th sword, his strength would be on par with senior brother Yao's. But it was obviously impossible to defeat senior brother Yao. After all, his opponent was at the peak of Xiantian's 7th stage, and he was only at the peak of Xiantian's 2nd stage. This was also because of his absolute defense and invincible attack, the power of the Luo Water Scripture's heaven-level cultivation technique, and of course, the top-grade 3rd order spirit artifact. The 4th sword of the Thunderclap sword art and the perfection of the Cool Breeze shadow were also a lot. Being able to be on par with a martial artist at the peak of Xiantian's 7th stage made him feel a little satisfied. On the side, Li Xingchen's face was filled with horror. He did not expect Lin Yi to be so powerful. In just over a month, he had reached the peak of Xiantian's 2nd stage and was able to be on par with senior brother Yao, who was at the peak of Xiantian's 7th stage. Humph, you have succeeded in infuriating me. Senior brother Yao was extremely angry. The peak of Xiantian's 7th stage was humiliated by a peak Xiantian 2nd stage martial artist. While feeling humiliated, he was also shocked by Lin Ye's talent. A newcomer who had just entered Xingwu College actually cultivated the 4th sword of the Thunderclap sword art to the perfection of the cool breeze shadow in just a month. This was more terrifying than him cultivating for 10 years. How heaven-defying was this? If he did not kill Yi Shiwen this time, he would die without a burial place in the future. While speaking, he quickly retreated and put away his long sword. A palm-sized rune appeared in his hand. The rune was simple and unadorned. Yi Shiwen did not know what it was used for. Senior Brother Yao's eyes were filled with reluctance, but then his eyes became resolute. Boom! Seeing the rune in Senior Brother Yao's hand, Lin Yi was extremely curious, but the threat of death rose from the bottom of his heart. When he wanted to retreat, the rune erupted with a terrifying power. He saw a huge sword light bombarding towards him. Its speed was extremely fast and almost instantly arrived in front of him. Absolute defense. Seeing this, Lin Ye's mind trembled. He no longer dared to hold back. With a stroke of his hand, a 1-meter-long Tai Chi shield appeared in front of him. On top of the Tai Chi shield, Yin and Yang symbols were constantly rotating. Absolute defense, the real absolute defense. Rumble with a loud sound. The sword light fiercely bombarded the absolute defense of the Tai Chi shield. Suddenly, the air within a radius of 100 meters distorted. Thunderclap sword art, 5th sword. The sword light and the absolute defense of the Tai Chi shield disappeared at the same time. Lin Yi retreated a step. His face finally revealed a murderous look. With a wave of his hand, the 5th sword of Thunderclap sword art broke out. In his heart, he was shocked. He did not expect that a rune could actually break his absolute defense. If there was another rune, he would die without a burial place. Thinking of this, he could not help but shudder with fear. He naturally did not know that this rune of Senior Brother Yao was incomparably precious. It was his life-saving means. Puchi. Before the sword arrived, a trace of sword chi slashed through the air. Senior Brother Yao, who was still in shock, spat out a mouthful of blood. His body stood motionless on the spot. A trace of blood could be seen on his neck, following which his entire body collapsed. He couldn't be any more dead. From the beginning to the end, he couldn't believe that Lin Yi had already cultivated the Thunderclap sword art to the 5th sword and was able to release sword chi. If not, he wouldn't have died so easily. Being killed by Lin Yi was because he did not expect Lin Yi to have mastered the 5th sword. Secondly, he did not expect his rune to be blocked by Lin Ye's light. This light was so mysterious that he was shocked. While he was shocked, he was killed by the sword chi. It's your turn. After killing Senior Brother Yao, Lin Yi did not stop. Executing Shadow Breeze to the extreme, he dashed towards Li Xingqian and slashed out with his sword. Li Xingqian did not even have time to react. The sword chi landed on his forehead. Just as he said a word, he fell. Why bother? Lin Yi looked at Senior Brother Yao and Li Xingqian's corpses and said indifferently. However, his heart was in turmoil. From the day he started cultivating, he knew that one day he would not only have to fight with demonic beasts, but also with humans. However, he did not expect this day to come so soon. 2 living beings were too fragile at this moment. At the same time, he thought that if he was not stronger than Senior Brother Yao and Li Xingqian, he would have been the one to die. Walking to the 2 corpses, he took their storage pouches. After doing all this, he used Shadow Breeze and dashed into the distance. After leaving the battlefield for 100 miles, Lin Yi stopped. Looking at the sky, it was close to nightfall. It was obviously impossible to continue hunting demonic beasts, following which, Lin Yi found a secluded small cave and entered. What a mysterious rune. It could actually break through my absolute defense. In the cave, Lin Yi took out Senior Brother Yao's storage pouch. In the storage pouch, other than a crystal chip, there were some low-level spiritual weapons and demonic beast materials, as well as martial skills and cultivation techniques. Most importantly, he discovered a jade slip and a talisman. This rune was exactly the same as the one senior brother Yao used. Looking at the rune, Lin Yi could not help but feel emotional. Such a small rune could actually explode with a terrifying power in an instant. It could even break through his absolute defense. Its power was domineering and incomparably magical. Fortunately, his absolute defense could withstand a full blow from any Xiantian realm martial artist. Otherwise, he would have been dead. Of course, if senior brother Yao used another rune, he would also be dead. This should be a level 3 spiritual rune. With my cultivation, only a level 3 spiritual rune can break through my absolute defense. Lin Yi looked at the palm-sized rune and muttered to himself. Now that he was in the Xiantian realm, his absolute defense could withstand a full blow from any Xiantian realm martial artist. Even a spirit maneuvering realm martial artist might not be able to break through his absolute defense. Unless this spiritual rune was a level 3 spiritual rune, its power was equivalent to a spirit maneuvering realm martial artist. No wonder senior brother Yao was so reluctant to use it. This was a rune that could injure or even kill a spirit maneuvering realm martial artist. Using it on Lin Yi was quite distressed. Ding! After looking at the rune, Lin Yi put away. This rune could explode with a powerful force. It could be used at a critical moment. He then picked up the crystal chip and transferred the wealth from senior brother Yao's crystal chip to his own. Then he transferred the wealth from Li Xingqian's crystal chip to his own crystal chip. Suddenly, Lin Yi's crystal chip had an additional large amount of gold coins. 301,201,000 gold coins. More than 30 million gold coins. Compared to Lin Yi's initial wealth, it was 30 times more. This 30 million gold coins basically came from Li Xingqian. Li Xingqian was Moon City's #1 genius. Moreover, he was the son of the Moon City's mayor. The mayor's son was also a genius. As the mayor, he would naturally give Li Xingqian a large amount of gold coins to squander. Map. After doing all this, Lin Yi picked up the jade strip. His spiritual sense entered the jade strip. The information inside the jade strip unfolded in his mind. The information inside was actually a map. This map came from senior brother Yao. Could it be that the rune was obtained from somewhere in the map? Lin Yi thought of a rune used by senior brother Yao. For a martial artist like senior brother Yao, without a strong background, it was impossible for him to buy such a precious rune. A level 3 spiritual rune was not something a Xiantian realm martial artist could afford. Since it was not bought, then it must have been obtained from somewhere else. This map, that place might be in a map. Thinking of this, Lin Yi carefully looked at the map inside the jade strip. The map inside the jade strip was very large and detailed. Chapter 15. After a night, Lin Yi finally finished reading the map. At this moment, the map and information were all recorded in Lin Yi's mind. Although he didn't enter the ninefold space to cultivate, the harvest made Lin Yi excited because he had found a treasure place from the map, which was the place where the 3rd level talisman was located. The next day, Lin Yi recovered his spirit sense and quickly ran towards the distance. With the map in his mind, he didn't need to run around like a headless fly. He went straight to the destination and killed any level 5 or 6 beast he encountered on the way. He even killed a lot of level 7 beasts and avoided level 8 beasts. In 10 days, Lin Yi carefully walked for thousands of miles and finally arrived in front of a mountain range. There was nothing strange about the bare mountain range. Lin Yi looked at the mountain range with a bitter expression on his face. Although there weren't any mystic class beasts in this area, the beasts here were all level 7 and above. One could even see yellow class level 9 beasts often. Even if he saw such beasts, he could only run away. Wanting to find the entrance to the treasure here was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. I can only use my spirit sense to slowly search. Lin Yi muttered to himself. He then spread out his divine sense and scanned the area within 500 meters with his divine sense. Every time he scanned the area, Lin Yi would search in the safest place. Because Brother Yao was only a Xiantian 7th stage martial artist, he could enter the treasure place, which meant that it was relatively safe. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to see Brother Yao. Time passed day by day. Unknowingly, a month had passed. In a month, Lin Yi didn't know how large an area he had scanned with his spirit sense. He was almost paralyzed with exhaustion and had to cultivate most of the time every day to recover his spirit sense. Finally, Lin Yi's spirit sense scanned a cave. In a wilderness where beasts roamed freely, there were naturally many caves. However, this cave surprised Lin Yi because it wasn't left by a beast but was completely a door. However, this cave-like door was in the grass. If one didn't have a strong spirit sense or a map, they would never think that there was a door behind the grass. Even if one had a strong spirit sense, they wouldn't be so bored to look around. This was something that consumed energy. Sure enough, it's here. Lin Yi carefully avoided the beasts and came in front of the grass. A door appeared in front of him. Looking carefully, there were traces of people here. Needless to say, it should be Brother Yao. The cave-like door was as tall as a person and 2 meters wide. It was man-made and very old. It was unknown how many years. It was covered with moss and moist. Lin Yi's spirit sense spread out. Behind the door, there was a tunnel of unknown depth. Lin Yi couldn't see the end of the tunnel with his spirit sense. He couldn't see the end of the tunnel with his spirit senses. After slightly adjusting his state of mind, he carefully walked inside. With divine telekinesis scanning in front of him, he could bring the information in front of him into his mind. He could even discover things that were invisible to the naked eye. This was the terror and magic of divine telekinesis. Step by step, Lin Yi didn't know how far he walked. Then, he came to a hall. The ancient hall was filled with the smell of dust. Fortunately, the hall was dry and not wet. Lin Yi found a pair of footprints on the ground. These footprints belonged to a person. Needless to say, it was Brother Yao. Lin Yi scanned the entire hall with his spirit sense. There was nothing valuable. He also knew that if there was something valuable, it would have been taken away by Brother Yao. He wouldn't have waited for him. He was a little disappointed. His eyes fell on the altar in the middle of the hall. Although it was called an altar, it was actually an array pattern on the ground. The pattern was simple and unadorned. It's not an altar. Lin Yi scanned the altar with his spiritual force. Soon, he realized that the array pattern that looked like an altar was not an altar. It was a small teleportation array, or rather a door. However, one needed to crack the array or have a strong spiritual force to open it. Although Brother Yao found this treasure, he couldn't enter the innermost part. Then, Lin Yi reached out and pressed on a certain part of the array pattern. A strong spirit sense also surged out. Rumble, rumble. When Lin Yi's palm pressed on the array pattern burst out with a ray of light. At the same time, it was accompanied by a deafening sound. However, Lin Yi wasn't shocked. On the contrary, he was excited, because the array pattern rotated, revealing a passageway the size of the array pattern. The passageway that appeared on the ground out of thin air was shocking. It was shocking to see the magic and power of the array pattern. Whoosh, without hesitation, he flashed and entered the passageway. The moment Lin Yi entered the passageway closed and the light of the array pattern disappeared. The teleportation array pattern stopped instantly. Lin Yi's figure suddenly appeared in the square. The square was extremely dark, so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. Even the air was sparse, emitting a pungent smell. He carefully extended his spirit sense. Everywhere it passed, everything was imprinted in his mind. Although he couldn't see his fingers, it didn't affect his spirit sense. Square, this is a sect that was buried underground. After a while, Lin Yi finally determined where he was. This was a sect that was buried underground, and it was from a very long time ago. It was at least in the late ancient era. Otherwise, how could there be a sect in this wilderness? Besides, what kind of heaven-defying means could make a sect be buried underground? Thinking of this, Lin Yi was shocked and excited at the same time. He was shocked because of how terrifying the ability to bury a sect was. He was excited because no one survived in this buried sect. He might be able to get some wealth and treasures by coming here. However, there was no light at all in the buried sect. He could only use his spirit sense to observe everything around him. If it wasn't for his spirit sense, he would be blind. Next, Lin Yi began to slowly explore everything here with his spirit sense like a blind man. Although it was pitch black, he could see everything in his mind with his divine sense. It did not affect his movements, but it was much slower than usual because he had to rely on his divine sense to observe everything here. After half a quarter of an hour, Lin Yi encountered a skeleton in the square. When he arrived, a breeze was produced, and the skeleton turned to dust. This meant that this person had been dead for tens of thousands of years. The skeleton turned to dust, leaving behind a storage bag. Lin Yi grabbed the storage bag and scanned it with his spirit sense. He found the items inside: a rank 4 spirit weapon, a rank 3 spirit talisman, and some cultivation supplies. In less than a quarter of an hour, Lin Yi saw another skeleton. Like before, the skeleton turned to dust, leaving behind a storage bag. There were also spirit weapons and spirit talismans in the storage bag, as well as cultivation resources for warriors. 1, 2, 3. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a month had passed, and Lin Yi had practically flipped through the entire sect in detail. He had been living in darkness. The darkness was nothing, but the air here was extremely thin and had a pungent smell. Lin Yi had to enter the ninefold space to rest for a while before coming out. These days, Lin Yi didn't get tired of exploring and searching. Although he was tired, he was extremely excited. This was because he had gained a lot in this sect. On this day, Lin Yi came to the most central location of the sect. In other words, this place was a secret room. Sects and families had their own secrets, and so did this sect. What a terrifying pressure. Lin Yi felt the powerful pressure in the secret room and was shocked. He looked at a skeleton in the secret room. To be precise, he was looking at a long saber. The powerful pressure was emitted from this long saber. The long saber was lying on the ground. The skeleton beside the long saber turned to dust after a breeze. Surpassing spirit weapon. This is definitely a treasured saber that surpasses spirit weapon. Looking at the long saber, Lin Yi's eyes were shining with excitement. However, he didn't act rashly. Instead, he looked carefully. After making sure that there was no danger, he walked toward the long saber step by step. The closer he got to the long saber, the more terrifying the pressure was. He knew that this pressure was called saber will, and it came from the long saber. When Lin Yi picked up the long saber let out a soft sound. The terrifying saber will made Lin Yi feel the overbearing will of destruction. This murderous intent alone was enough to affect him greatly. With a thought, he put away the long saber. He picked up the storage bag next to the skeleton and put it into the ninefold space. Then, he looked around to make sure that there was nothing else. It's time to go back. Lin Yi pondered for a while. He had been here for a month, and he had searched the entire sect. Until now, he had learned that this sect wasn't big. It was about the size of Luo province. However, the strength of this sect was much, much stronger than that of Luo province. However, he found a problem. According to the wealth he obtained, he found that there were no powerful warriors in this sect. Or rather, he didn't know where the powerful warriors of this sect went. Those that he encountered shouldn't have high cultivation strength. While thinking, he went back. 2 hours later, Lin Yi appeared in the hall. Appearing in the hall, he rested for a while and then quickly left. Through the passage, he returned to the entrance of the cave. After looking around and making sure that there were no people or beasts, he used his body movement to return. After 10 days, Lin Yi appeared at the temporary resting place. In the temporary resting place, Lin Yi closed the door and began to count his spoils. Spiritual artifacts below the 5th rank, more than 300. Spiritual artifacts below the 7th rank, more than 400. 8th rank spiritual artifacts, 103. 9th rank spiritual artifacts, 17. 3rd rank spiritual talismans, 938. 4th rank spiritual talismans, 311. 5th rank spiritual talismans, 109. 6th rank spiritual talismans, 4. In addition to spiritual talismans and spiritual artifacts, there were a lot of other cultivation items, all of which were resources that warriors needed for cultivation. What he cared about the most was the storage bag and long saber that he obtained in the secret room. Chapter 16. The long saber was called the Sky Flame Sacred Saber. It was a sacred weapon that surpassed spiritual weapons and possessed a terrifying and domineering power. The long saber was 4 feet long and looked extremely domineering. In the storage bag, Lin Yi found a pile of crystals the size of a finger. The crystals emitted a rich and pure spiritual energy that made one's spirit rise. Soon, he understood that the crystals were called spirit stones and were the crystallization of spiritual energy. Warriors could directly absorb the spiritual energy from the spirit stones and cultivate faster. It was a treasure for cultivation. After counting, there were more than 50,000 of them. In addition, Lin Yi found a cultivation technique and a martial technique. Heaven Tier Cultivation Technique. Heavenly Wood Amplification Technique. Heaven Tier Martial Technique. Tenfold Destruction Blade. Seeing the cultivation technique, Lin Yi directly ignored it. Although the Heavenly Wood Amplification Technique was powerful and was also a Heaven Tier cultivation technique, it was not suitable. Furthermore, he cultivated the Luo Water Sutra, so there was no need to change to the Heavenly Wood Amplification Technique. However, he was interested in the Heaven Tier Martial Technique, Tenfold Destruction Blade. Firstly, it was because this martial technique was compatible with the Sky Flame Sacred Saber. Secondly, he was currently lacking a powerful martial technique. The Tenfold Destruction Blade came at the right time. If he could cultivate the Tenfold Destruction Blade, his strength would increase greatly in battle. Let's deal with the demonic beast materials first. Sell the items I don't need. Lin Yi counted the spoils of war and muttered to himself. This time, he had unexpectedly obtained a shocking amount of wealth and resources. It was a good opportunity for him to equip himself and increase his strength. He did not need to go to the wilderness to hunt demonic beasts for a while. However, to deal with the demonic beast materials and the items he did not need, he had to go to the city. There was a powerful merchant alliance in the city. It could be said that the merchant alliance had almost everything, as long as you had money. The merchant alliance not only sold items, but also purchased items. At the temporary rest point, Lin Yi rested for a day before leaving and returning to Cloudwater City. Sky Sea Merchant Alliance. It was the largest merchant alliance in the entire Yinshui Kingdom, or even the entire Sky Sea realm. It was also one of the most prosperous regions in Cloudwater City. Countless warriors came and went, selling materials from fey beasts, buying spirit artifacts and spirit pills, and all sorts of transactions. When Lin Yi entered the city, he found an elder of Shunwu College to hand in the mission. Then, he went straight to the Sky Sea Commerce Alliance. However, before he entered the Merchant Union, he had bought a silver mask to wear. This mask could block out the scanning of divine sense, so outsiders could not tell his identity. Is there anything I can do for you? Lin Yi walked into the Merchant Union and found a receptionist. His transaction this time was very large, so he naturally wouldn't do it in the main hall. Moreover, he still needed to buy a lot of things here, so there had to be someone to receive him. Deal separately. 10 million and above. Lin Yi said lightly. His entire person was incomparably cold, and his words were as precious as gold. After he finished speaking, he no longer had any intention to speak. He coldly looked at the young receptionist, waiting for the young man's reply. This way, please. When the young man heard Lin Yi's words, he couldn't help but be shocked. 10 million was considered a relatively large transaction for the Sky Sea Commerce Alliance, but that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that the Sky Sea Commerce Alliance wouldn't easily lose any customer. Moreover, this was a big customer, and the other party said that it was more than 10 million. After being shocked, he immediately reacted and made a gesture of invitation, leading Lin Yi to the second floor. Please wait for a moment. The young man's tone was extremely polite. He personally poured Lin Yi a cup of fragrant tea before leaving. He was only receiving customers who were dealing separately. There were specialized personnel to attend to them, and it wasn't something he could handle. Now, he had to inform the deacon of the merchant union to come and deal with Lin Yi. Okay, Lin Yi nodded and picked up the fragrant tea to taste. After a while, the young man appeared in front of Lin Yi with an old man in his 50s. I'm Qin Dong. Welcome to the Sky Sea Commerce Alliance. Qin Dong introduced himself and sat beside Lin Yi at the coffee table. He wanted to ask about Lin Yi's identity, but when he saw the mask on Lin Yi's face, he knew that Lin Yi didn't want others to know his identity and origin. The merchant union strictly prohibited the privacy of the customers. Old mister, please check. Lin Yi stretched out his hand and placed a storage bag on the coffee table, pushing it in front of the old man. Wait a moment. Qin Dong looked at the storage bag that Lin Yi took out and couldn't help but frown, but his frown quickly disappeared. A transaction of more than 10 million. Could it be that this was the only storage bag? But soon, Qin Dong felt relieved. This was because there were more than 100 storage bags in this storage bag, and each of them contained countless demonic beast materials. Qin Dong couldn't help but be surprised when he saw these demonic beast materials. They were all demonic beast materials of yellow rank level 5 and above. Young friend, the inventory is complete. A total of 1 million gold coins. 2 hours later, Qin Dong said. As he spoke, he introduced the prices of the demonic beasts. The price was quite fair. He looked at Lin Yi with a trace of inquiry in his eyes. 4 million was a huge difference from more than 10 million. Okay, take a look at these. Lin Yi also took out a storage bag and handed it to Qin Dong. Then, he continued to sip his tea and ignored Qin Dong. When Qin Dong saw the items that Lin Yi wanted to sell, he couldn't help but be shocked because these were only cultivation items. They were all things that post-celestial martial artists needed, and they were all in high demand. He couldn't figure out how Lin Yi could sell so many cultivation items. He was curious, but he wouldn't ask. Young friend, how about 80 million? After a full 4 hours, Qin Dong finished counting all the items. Finally, he stated a price and looked at Lin Yi. All the items, plus the demonic beast materials just now. I'll only say a price, 100 million. There's no price to talk about. Lin Yi held a cup of tea and said lightly. His expression couldn't be seen, but it could be seen from his eyes that he didn't have the slightest emotional fluctuation from beginning to end. Even when he said 100 million, there was no emotional fluctuation. Okay. Qin Dong looked at Lin Yi for a full quarter of an hour before he agreed. He was calculating the price and the gains and losses, as well as the benefits. Anonymous chip. I need 100 rank 3 soul pills. 100 rank 3 true elemental pills. 100 rank 3 restoration pills. Lin Yi said, since the coins were stored in the anonymous chip, no one would know his identity. When the time came, he could transfer the coins from the anonymous chip to his own chip. There were 3 types of level 3 medicinal pills, and there were 100 of each type. Okay, I'll get it for you immediately. Qin Dong called the young man waiting outside the room, and the young man took his token and left. An hour later, the young man came back again. Little friend, rank 3 restoration pills, soul pills, and true elemental pills all cost 300,000 each. It's a total of 90 million gold coins. Here are the pills, and in this chip, there are 10 million gold coins. Qin Dong handed the pills and chip to Lin Yi and said with a smile. This time, the merchant union had earned at least 30 million gold coins from purchasing and selling items. It would be strange if he wasn't happy. Correct. Lin Yi counted the pills, took the crystal chip, and the pills got up and left. After leaving the Sky Sea Merchant Union, he wandered around the city a few times to make sure that no one was following him. Only then did he head towards the direction of Shengwu College. When he was close to Shengwu College, he quietly put away his mask. Mystic Ice Palace, Luo Bingyue's cultivation residence. You said brother-in-law has canceled the agreement. Luo Xing, Er's face was full of shock. She couldn't believe it was true. However, this came from Luo Bingyue's mouth. She knew her sister's character. She would never lie, and there was no need to joke with her. Yes, Luo Bingyue's cold and beautiful face showed a trace of anxiety. For more than 2 months, she had been in seclusion in the palace. After coming out of seclusion, she knew that Lin Yi hadn't come back, and Luo Xing'er and Luo Ling'er were very worried. She told them about Lin Yi canceling the agreement. Have you ever thought about it? Brother-in-law's cultivation is only at Xiantian second stage. He has nothing. How long can he last in the wilderness, where demonic beasts roam freely? What if he's attacked by demonic beasts? Luo Xing was very worried. In the wilderness, demonic beasts roamed freely. Not to mention a Xiantian second stage cultivator, even a spiritual movement realm cultivator could die at any time. Lin Yi hadn't come back for more than 2 months. Something must have happened to him. Thinking of this, Luo Xing couldn't help but shed tears. She didn't expect that as early as 2 months ago, Lin Yi canceled the agreement with her sister, but he didn't tell her. I also didn't expect him to cancel the agreement. Luo Bingyue's tone was cold, but one could feel the guilt in her voice. She really wanted freedom, but after getting it, she didn't feel happy. With her cold personality, she didn't want others to know what she was thinking. Before Luo province, he didn't know about the agreement. Everyone looked down on him. Even the people of Luo province looked down on him. Even you looked down on him. But did you see him complain after knowing about the agreement? The reason why he canceled the agreement was because he didn't want to bind you. He didn't want to restrict your freedom. Let me ask you, if it was someone else, would they help you? Luo Xing said in a low voice. Now, she knew the thoughts behind Lin Yi's actions. I know what I'm doing. Focus on your cultivation. Luo Bingyue looked at Luo Xing. When Luo Xing finished speaking, she turned and walked towards the palace. Lin Yi hadn't returned for a long time, which made her feel a little guilty. If it weren't for her selfishness, Lin Yi wouldn't have known about the agreement. Naturally, he wouldn't have canceled the agreement. Otherwise, Lin Yi would still be cultivating in the Xianai's palace. Although there was a trace of selfishness in it, she didn't expect Lin Yi to cancel the agreement. But it was too late to say anything now. Had he really been cultivating in seclusion for 2 months? The answer was definitely not. She didn't leave the palace because she was worried about facing Lin Yi. But when she came out 2 months later, Lin Yi had been in the wilderness for more than 2 months. Brother-in-law, just as Luo Bingyue was about to enter the palace, she was still apologizing in her heart. At this time, Luo Xing's voice sounded. Chapter 17. As she turned around, a figure appeared at the entrance of the palace. The familiar figure made her feel inexplicable. When she saw this person, she felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. She could not help but feel happy. This feeling puzzled her. She did not understand what had happened to her. Lin Yi. Yes, it was Lin Yi. Lin Yi, who went to the wilderness and didn't return for more than 2 months, was now back in front of her alive. Brother-in-law, Luo Xing, was very happy to see Lin Yi. She twisted her delicate body and ran towards Lin Yi. When she arrived in front of Lin Yi, her eyes were red. She tried to hold back her tears, but she still couldn't stop them from falling down her beautiful cheeks. She wanted to hug Lin Yi, but she remembered that her sister was watching and her identity. What's wrong? Lin Yi saw Luo Xing's appearance and couldn't help but be startled. His gaze shifted from Luo Xing to Luo Bingyue. He was curious. Did the two sisters quarrel? Otherwise, Luo Xing wouldn't cry. It was heartbreaking to see her like this. Young Master Lin, you're back. Xing is worried about young Master Lin. Luo Ling saw that Luo Bingyue didn't say anything, so she opened her mouth. She just knew that Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue had nothing to do with each other. Naturally, she couldn't help Luo Bingyue and say that she was worried about Lin Yi. Sorry for the delay. Sorry for making you worry. Lin Yi suddenly realized that Luo Xing was worried because he didn't come back for more than 2 months. Suddenly, he felt warm and touched. He didn't expect that there would be people in this world who cared about his life and death. After that, he walked towards the Xian Ice Palace. It's good that you're fine. Luo Bingwe didn't dare to look at Lin Yi. When I was hunting demonic beasts in the wasteland, I've gained something. Xing, this is for you. Ling, this is for you. I know you don't lack resources, so this spiritual artifact should suit you. Lin Yi gave the heavenly wood amplification technique and a 9th grade spirit weapon to Luo Xing. He also gave a top grade, earth grade cultivation method and a 9th grade spirit weapon to Luo Linger. Finally, he took out a long sword and handed it to Luo Bingwe. The frost sword was a 9th rank, peerless spiritual weapon. Brother-in-law, this is a 9th rank spiritual artifact. Luo Xing, looked at the cultivation method and spirit tool that Lin Yi handed to her and was immediately shocked. She still didn't know that the cultivation technique was of the heaven rank, but she could tell that the spirit tool was a 9th grade spirit weapon. A 9th grade spirit weapon was definitely the top spirit weapon in the entire Yinshui kingdom. Even in Luo province, there was only one 9th grade spirit weapon. She didn't expect Lin Yi to have a 9th grade spirit weapon and give it to her. Not bad. Lin Yi nodded. Thank you, Mr. Lin. Luo Linger was also very excited. A 9th grade spirit weapon and a powerful cultivation method could greatly improve her strength. Seeing that Lin Yi treated her the same way as Xing, she was very happy and had a trace of sweetness in her heart, because this meant that in Lin Ye's heart, she was the same as Xing. Lin Yi gave Luo Linger an encouraging smile. Thank you. This spirit weapon is indeed very helpful to me. Luo Bingwe took the spirit weapon and was very surprised. She didn't expect Lin Yi to have such a heaven-defying harvest in the wilderness. He even obtained a 9th grade spirit weapon. One had to know that even with her status, she only had a 5th grade spirit weapon. There were only a few people in the entire Shengwu College who could use a 9th grade spirit weapon. This 9th grade spirit weapon, Ice Sword, was more suitable for her cultivation method attribute. Actually, I should be the one thanking you. Arrange for me to go to Shengwu College. In a few days, I will challenge one of the top 10 disciples. Lin Yi said with a smile. This time when he returned to Shengwu College, he had thought it through. With his own strength, he wouldn't fight for the position of a true disciple, but he still had to fight for the position of one of the top 10 disciples. Of course, he didn't care about being a true disciple at all. However, he didn't want to be in the limelight. As long as he could become one of the top 10 disciples, it would be fine. Because the top 10 disciples had their own palaces, their status was not much different from that of a true disciple. The top 10 disciples could be replaced at any time. As long as someone challenged you, you could only use your own strength to defend your position and interests. If you failed, you would fall out of the top 10 disciples. You want to challenge one of the top 10 true disciples? Luo Bingwe looked at Lin Yi. While she was shocked, she also felt a little disappointed. She was shocked because Lin Yi was confident in his own strength. She was disappointed because Lin Yi would have his own palace after becoming one of the top 10 disciples, which meant that Lin Yi would move out of here. Moreover, Lin Yi's words of gratitude made her feel that she would lose something. Well, there should be a little hope. However, even if I fail, it won't be long before I go to the secret realm. It's a good opportunity to gain experience. Maybe I can gain a lot in the secret realm. Lin Yi smiled. After that, he walked towards his own pavilion. Now, he could only temporarily live in the Ice Palace. Brother-in-law, Luo Xing, saw Lin Yi return to the pavilion, called out, and chased after Lin Yi. She knew that her sister and Lin Yi had broken off the agreement and were no longer unmarried. Obviously, Lin Yi intended to leave the Ice Palace and didn't want to have anything to do with her sister. If Lin Yi moved out this time, then she would be more and more estranged from Lin Yi in the future. Luo Bingwe's beautiful and cold face revealed a wry smile. Xing, what's the matter? Lin Yi saw Luo Xing follow him, turned to look at Luo Xing and asked. His tone was the same as usual. It was as if nothing could affect Lin Ye's mood at all. Nothing could affect Lin Ye's state of mind. Brother-in-law, in fact, sister doesn't want to break off the agreement. Even if she wants to be free, it's human nature. After all, you just met and don't have any feelings for each other. Luo Xing hurriedly said. Although she didn't know Lin Yi for long, she trusted Lin Yi very much. If it wasn't for her sister, she would like Lin Yi. Although Lin Yi and her sister had broken off the relationship now, she still regarded Lin Yi as her brother-in-law. Naturally, she didn't want to lose her brother-in-law. Xing, you're still young. There are some things you don't understand. If it wasn't for the agreement and the family, your sister wouldn't have agreed. For her, it's a kind of restraint. She has someone she likes. She has her freedom. She has her pride. She has her life. Lin Yi looked at Luo Xing and said with a smile. Luo Bingyue had a family behind her, but he was alone. He didn't have to worry about anything. Of course, this was also for now. If he encountered a powerful enemy, he would only implicate the people around him. Unless he became the strongest one day and controlled his fate in his own hands, no one would be able to threaten him. At that time, he would have a vigorous love. I'm young. I'm the same age as my sister. She was born just 15 minutes earlier than me. In terms of age, I'm older than her because she often cultivates in seclusion and rarely comes into contact with people and things. She's not as good as me in many things. I understand what you're saying. Can you not move away? When Luo Xing heard Lin Yi say that she was young, she immediately became unhappy. She puffed out her chest and said unhappily. She didn't realize that Lin Yi was actually younger than her. I'm still in Xingwu College. It's fine. You can come and play with me. By the way, your talent is not as good as your sister's. Take this medicinal pill and give some to Linger. When you go to the secret territory, your safety will be better guaranteed. Lin Yi didn't refuse, but he didn't agree. Instead, he answered Luo Xing in a roundabout way. What he meant was that even if he moved away, he would still be in Xingwu College. Xingwu College was only so big. He could see her at any time. At the end of his words, he took out some medicinal pills. Level 3 spirit pills. So many level 3 spirit pills. Brother-in-law, you're really generous. That's 300,000 gold coins per pill. That's 300,000 gold coins per pill. Even in the Luo clan, no one would be willing to use such a pill. Luo Xing looked at the medicinal pills that Lin Yi gave her and couldn't help but be shocked. She had used such level 3 spirit pills before, but she only used 2 when she was trying to break through to the innate realm. Now, that Lin Yi took out dozens of level 3 spirit pills at once, she was naturally shocked. Wealth can only reflect its value when it's used on the blade. Go, I also want to cultivate for a few days. Lin Yi smiled. As he spoke, he couldn't help but reach out and stroke Luo Xing's hair. Okay. Luo Xing nodded obediently this time. She decided in her heart that as long as Lin Yi didn't leave Xingwu College, she would go to Lin Ye's place a few more times. Anyway, it wouldn't be too far away. She would treat it as her sister's happiness. In front of the palace in the distance, Luo Bingyue happened to see the scene of Lin Yi stroking Luo Xing's hair. She didn't mind. She was just envious that Lin Yi was so close to her sister. Her personality was different from Xing's. Even if she had something, she could only hide it in her heart and wouldn't say it easily. She also wouldn't mix with others like Luo Xing. It's time to cultivate. After returning to his room, Lin Yi began to cultivate seriously. In the past, he only cultivated the 3,000 heavenly Dao and the absolute defense and invincible attack. Now, as his strength increased, he had to cultivate more and more things, and he needed more and more time. In other words, there wasn't enough time at all. In this world, the one thing that was lacking the most was time. If there was enough time, even a good-for-nothing could become a powerhouse. However, everyone's lifespan was limited, and there was no time for them to cultivate to become a powerhouse. Countless geniuses died because there wasn't enough time. In order to save time, geniuses would choose the most important cultivation techniques and martial techniques to avoid wasting time. The 3,000 heavenly Dao that Lin Yi cultivated consumed a terrifying amount of time. It was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to improve even a little. It required a lot of time. This was also one of the reasons why countless geniuses didn't cultivate their divine will. Fortunately, Lin Yi had the ninefold space, and the time ratio was 4:1. In other words, he could have 4 times more cultivation time than others. If he unlocked the third seal of the ninefold space, the time ratio might be even more heaven-defying. Chapter 18. With the ninefold space, Lin Yi cultivated outside during the day. At night, he entered the ninefold space. The 4:1 ratio gave him a lot of time to practice cultivation techniques, martial skills, and the 3,000 heavenly Tao. The day finally passed. In the dead of the night, Lin Yi opened the ninefold space. His figure strangely disappeared and entered the ninefold space. Sacred weapon, sky flame, sacred saber. Sure enough, it's not something a spiritual weapon can compare with. Lin Yi looked at the saber, which was emitting a terrifying saber intent. This saber intent alone was enough to tear apart the defense of any Xiantian martial artist, leaving them with no chance to fight back. If he could control the Sky Flame's sacred saber, he could do whatever he wanted. Although he had never seen a sacred weapon, he knew some information about it from Theta Scarabii. According to the ancient records, there were sacred runes inside the sacred weapon, which could erupt with shocking power. The stronger the sacred runes, the stronger the sacred weapon. The more sacred runes, the higher the level of the sacred weapon. The name of the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber, not only indicated its level, but also the domineering sacred runes inside the saber. These sacred runes were enough to prove that it was a powerful sacred weapon. Lin Yi looked at the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber with a blazing light in his eyes. If he could control this Sky Flame, Sacred Saber, his strength would increase a lot. Even if he encountered a Xiantian 9th stage martial artist, he could kill him with one strike. Of course, this was mainly due to the sacred runes and saber intent inside the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber. Besides, it was best not to use a sacred weapon that surpassed a spiritual weapon under normal circumstances. One must know that the most powerful weapon in Yinshui Kingdom was only 9th stage, and 9th stage spiritual weapons were very rare. If a sacred weapon appeared, he would be hunted down by countless experts. After a while, Lin Yi dripped a drop of essence blood on the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber. Suddenly, a terrifying saber intent erupted from the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber, making a sizzling sound. The saber intent rushed out and raged towards Lin Ye's body. Lin Ye's face was filled with shock and pain. That saber intent was incomparably domineering, almost tearing him to pieces. The pain made him want to faint. However, he could not faint. The saber will continue to wreak havoc. After an unknown period of time, Lin Yi sensed that he now possessed a trace of saber intent, just like the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber. However, the saber intent he possessed was far too little. Compared to the Sky Flame, Sacred Saber, it was only 1%. At this moment, the Sky Flame Sacred Blade had already recognized its master. Lin Yi held the Sky Flame Sacred Saber with one hand, and he immediately felt unparalleled confidence. It was like he could chop the river in half with one saber strike. His hot-bloodedness surged, and he itched to fight a great battle. However, Lin Yi could not easily use the Heavenly Flame's Sacred Blade in the ninefold space. This was to avoid affecting the ninefold space. After all, the ninefold space had only just unlocked the second seal and was not very stable. Once the third seal was unlocked, the ninefold space would become an independent small world. Even a battle would not affect the ninefold space. Suppressing his boiling blood, he put away the Sky Flame Sacred Blade. Then, an ancient book of martial techniques appeared in his hand. Looking at the ancient book in his hand, Xiao Chun revealed a trace of anticipation. Although the Sky Flame Sacred Blade was powerful, without a powerful martial technique, the Sky Flame Sacred Blade would not be able to unleash its full power. The tenfold destruction saber in his hand was just right for the Sky Flame Sacred Blade. After cultivating the tenfold destruction saber, its power had reached a terrifying level when combined with the Sky Flame Sacred Blade. However, cultivating the tenfold destruction saber was not so easy. It was not like a profound rank or earth rank martial technique. Instead, it was a heaven rank martial technique. Furthermore, it was a very powerful and domineering heaven rank martial technique. The tenfold destruction saber only has 9 layers. This is because no one has cultivated the 10th layer. In other words, there's no 10th layer. The first layer creates a saber light. The second layer creates 2 saber lights. The third layer creates 4 saber lights. The fourth layer creates 8 saber lights. When one reaches the 9th layer, one will be able to create endless saber lights in the world with one saber strike, thousands upon thousands of destructive saber lights. The difference in power between each layer is like heaven and earth. Lin Yi was extremely shocked when he comprehended the tenfold destruction saber. He did not expect the tenfold destruction saber to be so terrifying. If it was combined with the Sky Flame's sacred blade, he would be invincible within the same rank. He would be able to kill opponents several levels higher. However, he did not know how long it would take to cultivate the tenfold destruction saber to the 10th layer. Next, Lin Yi made a cultivation arrangement. During the day, he would cultivate the Luo water scripture to improve his cultivation. At night, he would cultivate the thunderclap sword technique, the tenfold destruction saber, the absolute defense, and the invincible attack. Of course, he would cultivate in a 9-fold space at night. Unknowingly, 8 days had passed. In 8 days, Lin Ye's cultivation had reached the Xiantian Realm Level 3 from the peak of Xiantian Realm Level 2. Lin Yi was not happy about reaching the Xiantian Realm Level 3 because it was only at the Xiantian Realm. Besides, it was only a matter of time before he reached the Xiantian Realm Level 3. However, what made him happy was that the Thunderclap sword technique had reached the 6th sword. He had successfully cultivated the first layer of the tenfold destruction saber. With the help of the soul pill, his spiritual sense had entered the 21st layer. Although the gap between the 20th layer and the 21st layer was only a small step, the gap between the two was huge. It was like going from the Hodian realm to the Xiantian realm, or going from the Xiantian realm to the spiritual movement realm. On this day, Lin Yi stopped cultivating and walked out of the pavilion. He just happened to see Luo Xing'er, Luo Ling'er, and Luo Bingyue. Seeing Luo Bingyue, Lin Yi could not help but be surprised. This was because the impression that Luo Bingyue gave him was that she had always been in closed-door cultivation and rarely came out. However, he soon understood. He saw that there was a young man with the 3 women. The young man was confident and at ease. His body exuded an elegant temperament. The nobility of an aristocratic family's heaven's pride was fully revealed. He was dressed in purple, holding a folding fan in his hand, and had a confident smile on his face. Although he was talking and laughing, his eyes were intentionally or unintentionally sweeping over Luo Bingyue and the other 2 women. It turned out that the appearance of Luo Bingyue was because of this young man. Brother-in-law. The appearance of Lin Yi was seen by Luo Xing. She, who had been pouting, happily greeted Lin Yi. She looked very unhappy and quickly ran in the direction of Lin Yi. She pulled Lin Yi's hand and walked towards the young man. There are guests. Lin Yi had a smile on his face as he looked at Luo Xing. After cultivating the heavenly wood amplification technique, Luo Xing had become even stronger. Her temperament had become even more refreshing and lively, as if she was the spirit of all things. The heavenly wood amplification technique was a heaven-rank wood type cultivation technique. Luo Xing happened to be of the wood attribute, which was just right for her. A heaven's pride from the Moon Kingdom. His name is Jun Hanli, a low-grade emperor body. Now, he's at the Xianan 9th layer, only 1 step away from the spirit mirror. Luo Xing said in a low voice. From her expression, it was obvious that she was unhappy to see this heaven's pride from the Moon Kingdom, because this heaven's pride came for her sister and wanted to hit on Luo Bingyue. Jun Hanli, a low-grade emperor body, a super genius. Moreover, he had another identity, and that was the son of the emperor beside the emperor of the Moon Kingdom. His status was extraordinary, and he was a top existence among countless heaven's prides. A heaven's pride from the Moon Kingdom. He's like a dragon or a phoenix among men. Lin Yi smiled. He didn't put a low-grade emperor body in his eyes. Although he didn't have a martial soul, he didn't put these talented heaven's prides in his eyes. Not to mention a low-grade emperor body. Even if it was a peerless emperor body or a saint body, he wouldn't care. The two of them talked as they walked forward. His appearance and Luo Xing'er's movements attracted the attention of Luo Ling'er, Luo Bingyue, and the young man. The three of them looked at Luo Xing'er and Lin Yi. Luo Bingyue and Luo Ling'er didn't care, because they were used to Luo Xing'er being close to Lin Yi. As for Jun Hanli, when he saw Lin Yi, a trace of ice-cold, killing intent flashed through his eyes. Even Luo Bingyue and Luo Ling'er didn't notice it, because Jun Hanli's cultivation was high, and he always had a smile on his face. However, that trace of killing intent was unable to escape Lin Yi's perception. If he, who had a level 21 divine sense, couldn't detect this killing intent, then it wouldn't be divine sense. Sensing the young man's killing intent, Lin Yi's lips curled into a smile. In Xing'er's eyes, brother-in-law is the most powerful. Luo Xing'er had a cute smile on her beautiful face. The two of them talked and laughed, and soon they arrived in front of Luo Bingyue and the others. You're done with your cultivation. To Lin Yi's surprise, Luo Bingyue actually took the initiative to greet him. In Lin Yi's memory, this was the first time this had happened, and her tone wasn't so cold. Furthermore, when she greeted Lin Yi, she stood up. Luo Ling'er, who was beside her, bowed towards Lin Yi. Yes, I'm done with my cultivation. We have guests. Lin Yi nodded, looking calm. He looked at Jun Hanli. Introduce them. Crown Prince Jun, this is my brother-in-law. Brother-in-law, this is Jun Hanli, the son of the prince beside the emperor of the Moon Kingdom. He is a super genius of the Moon Kingdom. He has the flame gold body and is at the peak of Xiantian Stage 9. He is considered very powerful among his peers. Luo Xing'er had a mischievous smile on her face as she held Lin Yi's hand. She began to introduce Jun Hanli and Lin Yi. When she introduced Lin Yi to Jun Hanli, she deliberately emphasized the word brother-in-law to indicate the relationship between Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue, and to persuade Jun Hanli not to have any ideas about her sister. Hearing Luo Xing'er's introduction, Jun Hanli looked coldly at Lin Yi. He had heard about Lin Yi long ago. It was said that Lin Yi did not have a martial soul, but he had become Luo Bingyue's fiancé. This time, he came to the Dark Ice Palace because of Luo Bingyue. When he saw Luo Bingyue's beauty, he was stunned. He also liked Luo Ling'er and Luo Xing'er very much, especially Luo Bingyue and Luo Xing'er. The two of them were twin sisters, and they looked exactly the same. They were incomparably beautiful. If one person could take down the two sisters, that would be the greatest blessing in life. Now, Lin Yi's existence made him view Lin Yi as someone who should be killed. He did not see Lin Yi as an opponent or enemy, because Lin Yi was not qualified to be his opponent or enemy. Jun Hanli. Lin Yi nodded at Jun Hanli as a form of greeting. If they were not in the Dark Ice Palace, he would not have bothered with this Lin Yi. He was too rude, because everyone present was standing and greeting him. He was the only one who sat without moving, completely ignoring Lin Yi. You're the Lin Yi who doesn't have a martial soul. To be honest, I admire you. Jun Hanli sat down, reached out, and picked up the fragrant tea and tasted it gently. Chapter 19. Luo Bingyue couldn't help but frown at Jun Hanli's disrespect and contempt. Luo Ling'er and Luo Xing'er also felt a trace of anger. Apart from the relationship between Lin Yi and Luo Bingyue, their relationship with Lin Yi was better than that of a stranger. Now, an outsider genius was being rude to Lin Yi. It was the same as being rude to them. They couldn't stand it anymore. Luo Bingyue glanced at Jun Hanli indifferently, and the coldness in her body intensified. Ever since Lin Yi broke the agreement, she felt a trace of guilt. Seeing someone being rude to Lin Yi and looking down on him was like touching the pain in her heart. It's my honor to be admired by Crown Prince Jun. Tell me, what is it about Crown Prince Jun that you admire me, so that I can go out and show off? Lin Yi didn't take Jun Hanli's disrespect to heart at all. This was because he didn't take Jun Hanli seriously at all. There was no need to be calculative with someone who didn't take a liking to him. A true genius had pride and confidence, but his pride and confidence were positive. But Jun Hanli wasn't a true genius. He wasn't even a true genius, so how could Lin Yi take him seriously? As he spoke, he sat opposite Jun Hanli. Luo Ling obediently poured Lin Yi a cup of tea and stood beside Lin Yi. Fairy Bingwe, you're extremely talented. Your looks are stunning, and Sir Lin, your talent, haha. I wonder if Sir Lin feels any pressure. Jun Hanli smiled and said, Is Bingwe beautiful? I don't feel it. Talent, extremely talented? I don't feel it either. Pressure, to be honest, I really don't feel any pressure. Lin Yi picked up the fragrant tea that Luo Ling handed him and gently tasted it. He had a faint smile on his face as he looked at Luo Bingwe. After he finished speaking, his gaze landed on Jun Hanli. To be honest, Luo Bingwe was indeed beautiful. Moreover, she was cold and arrogant, keeping people at a distance of 1,000 miles, just like an ice goddess. However, he didn't feel any pressure at all. When Luo Bingwe saw Lin Yi's gaze, her heart couldn't help but tighten. She didn't expect Lin Yi to look at her, but Lin Yi looked at her with admiration. When she heard Lin Yi say that he didn't think she was beautiful, she felt a sense of loss, an inexplicable sense of loss. Sir Lin, you're immortal. You must have relied on Fairy Bingwe to get into Shengwu College. Jun Hanli looked at Lin Yi. When he heard Lin Yi's reply, he almost broke down. How could there be such a thick-skinned person in this world? Crown Prince Jun, you said that my talent shouldn't be in your eyes. Now that you say that I'm immortal, may I ask, Crown Prince Jun, what else do you have to be proud of other than your identity as a crown prince? Why don't you tell me? I'm really curious. Lin Yi's tone was calm, neither fast nor slow. However, the look in his eyes became sharp. If others don't offend me, I won't offend them. If others offend me, I'll definitely repay them double. Sir Lin, you're quite eloquent. However, being eloquent doesn't mean that you can survive in this world. Only with great talent and strength can one become a superior person. You don't understand this point. If it weren't for Fairy Bingwe, I would really teach you well so that you won't die after leaving Shengwu College. Jun Hanli's expression became extremely ugly. He was a super genius with the emperor physique. He hated it when people talked about his identity. Now, a young man without a martial soul said that he had nothing but his identity as a crown prince. He couldn't take it anymore. However, he didn't want to lose his composure in front of Luo Bingwe. If he met Lin Yi alone, he would definitely make Lin Yi suffer a fate worse than death. Crown Prince Jun has said so much. I've finally heard something that's reasonable. Lin Yi said calmly with a smile on his face. The meaning of his words was clear. He meant that Jun Hanli had said so much, but none of it was reasonable. Hee, brother-in-law, I agree with what you said. Luo Xing'er couldn't help but laugh. She didn't expect her brother-in-law, who had always been low-key and calm, to be so sarcastic. Moreover, he was the son of the emperor physique genius of the Moon Kingdom. Xing'er. Luo Bingwe was happy to see Lin Yi mocking Jun Hanli, but she wasn't as straightforward as Luo Xing'er. Moreover, Luo Xing echoed Lin Yi's words, which inevitably made Jun Hanli embarrassed. Jun Hanli's expression was extremely ugly. With a cold snort, he released the power of a peak Khanate Stage 9. Crown Prince Jun, this is Shengwu College. It's not your Jun family. Don't geniuses like you need to cultivate? Lin Yi looked coldly at Jun Hanli and said. Jun Hanli was bored, but he wouldn't stay here. After saying that, he got up and was about to leave. Ice Moon Fairy, you and I are both geniuses with the emperor physique. You should understand the pride of a genius. Lin Yi provoked me, but I didn't argue with him for the sake of Ice Moon Fairy. Now, can I teach him a thing or two? Jun Hanli saw that Lin Yi was about to leave, and he immediately became unhappy. Although he had never underestimated a good-for-nothing youth, Lin Ye's words had provoked and humiliated him. If he were to let Lin Yi leave just like that, it would be strange if Jun Hanli, would not be laughed to death in the future. Young Master Jun, this is Mystic Ice Palace. If young Master Jun thinks that he is invincible among the Khanate stage, Bing Yue can experience young Master Jun's means. Of course, Mystic Ice Palace doesn't allow fighting. We can go to the arena. I wonder what young Master Jun thinks. Luo Bingyue looked at Jun Hanli with her beautiful eyes and said coldly. Although she was asking Jun Hanli, she had already walked out of Mystic Ice Palace. Needless to say, she wanted to compete with Jun Hanli in the arena. They were both Emperor physiques, and they were both at the peak of Xiantian Stage 9. They were only one step away from spirit formation. I am honored that Ice Moon Fairy is willing to teach me. I will teach you after I spar with Ice Moon Fairy. When Jun Hanli heard Luo Bingyue's words, he couldn't help but be startled. He could use his strength to conquer this beautiful ice-cold goddess. At that time, the two Emperor physiques will become a pair. It would definitely be a good story. He looked at Luo Bingyue's departure with excitement. Then he stared coldly at Lin Yi and walked out of Mystic Ice Palace. Let's go and see your sister's strength. Lin Yi directly ignored Jun Hanli. If Jun Hanli was his enemy, he could kill him without lifting a finger. He looked at Luo Bingyue, who had already walked out of Mystic Ice Palace. That beautiful back view was even more beautiful. Luo Bingyue dared to stand out. It should be because she was confident in her own strength. More importantly, she wanted to test her own strength. Then, he said to Luo Xinger and walked out. The arena. Shengwu College was a place where one could fight. It could be said that this was the only place in the entire Shengwu College where one could fight without being punished. If one fought in other places, they would be punished by Shengwu College. This was one of the most lively places in Shengwu College. Warriors could be seen coming here to exchange pointers at any time. Luo Bingyue's appearance immediately caused a sensation. One must know that Luo Bingyue was the most beautiful girl in Yinshui Kingdom. She was the goddess in the hearts of countless geniuses. She was an ice goddess. Moreover, she had an emperor physique. This year, Shengwu College recruited 2 people with emperor physiques. Luo Bingyue was one of them. Luo Bingyue, that's Luo Bingyue. Goddess Luo, the most beautiful goddess in my heart. Senior Luo is going to the arena. Is Senior Luo going to fight with someone? She is a super genius with an emperor physique. Who can fight with her? Isn't that the super genius of the Moon Kingdom, Jun Hanli? He is also a genius with an emperor physique. Is Jun Hanli going to fight with Luo Bingyue in the arena? I heard that Luo Bingyue has a twin sister who looks exactly the same. She is really beautiful. That Luo Linger, although she's not as beautiful as Luo Bingyue and her sister, she is definitely a beauty. Countless voices of discussion could be heard. Moreover, as the news spread, many students near the arena rushed to the arena. Firstly, they admired the beauty of the sisters Luo Bingyue and Luo Ling. Secondly, they wanted to watch the battle between the super geniuses with emperor physiques. In less than a moment, thousands of students had gathered in the arena. There were also countless students rushing over. There were even strong cultivators from the spirit channeling realm. Beautiful women would become the focus of attention wherever they went. Of course, Lin Yi was also the subject of discussion. However, the topic of discussion was not so pleasant. More people said that Lin Yi was living off a woman and was shamelessly sticking to Luo Bingyue. Hiss, the arena was 100 meters long, 100 meters wide, and 2 meters high. The entire arena was made of hard bluestone and was supported by a powerful array. Not to mention Xiantians. Even if it was a battle between spirit formations or even more terrifying cultivators, they would not be able to shake the arena. On the arena, Luo Bingyue was wearing a white dress. Her entire body was cold and arrogant. Her entire body was emitting a cold aura. Her temperament was otherworldly, and no one dared to approach her. Jun Hanli was confident and at ease as he waved a fan in his hand. The two of them were 20 meters apart. Both of them were dragons and phoenixes among men. Countless students were envious of them. In the hearts of countless people, they were a match made in heaven. However, at this moment, the two of them were treating each other as opponents. The battle had not yet begun, but a powerful aura had already spread out. In front of the powerful aura, the air was distorted and torn apart, producing a hissing sound. The spectating students felt a strong pressure. Kacha, with Luo Bingyue as the center, a layer of frost appeared on the ground within a radius of 10 meters. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply. Chila, with Jun Hanli as the center, the air within a radius of 10 meters was distorted like a sharp blade. In terms of talent, the two of them were equally matched. Chapter 20. Rumble, Luo Bingyue turned into a white shadow and rushed towards Jun Hanli with a terrifying icy aura. Jun Hanli waved the folding fan in his hand, and it exploded in the air. For a moment, the two super geniuses were fighting. Both of them were geniuses with emperor physique and had reached the peak of Xiantian realm. They could break through the Xiantian realm at any time and step into the spirit-driving realm. On the fighting stage, sword light flashed and energy raged. Below the stage, countless students were stunned and sighed in their hearts. This was a real battle. Although they were both Xiantian realm, there was a huge gap between their strength and Luo Bingyue and Jun Hanli's. Heavenly Ice Technique. Ice Sword Technique. Time passed by, and a quarter of an hour had passed. Neither of them was able to determine the winner. At this moment, Luo Bingyue's voice sounded. Her voice was as cold as ice, and it made people tremble. When her voice sounded, a terrifying ice power erupted on the fighting stage. Countless ice sword light flashed, and each sword light was terrifying to the extreme. The spirit-driving realm experts could not help but be shocked when they saw this scene. Even if they were in the spirit-driving realm, they might not be able to withstand this terrifying sword light. Golden Flame Technique. Unparalleled Sword Technique. Jun Hanli's face became ugly. Although the others felt the terror of the ice sword technique, they did not experience it personally. He, who was on the fighting stage, felt the arrival of the Grim Reaper. It was as if he would fall in the next moment. Not daring to hold back, he operated the Golden Flame Technique to the extreme and slashed out with his sword. Rumble, clang, hiss, the two figures flashed and intertwined with each other. A terrifying, muffled sound exploded in the air. However, both of them stopped and didn't intend to attack again. The fighting ring gradually quieted down. In the end, it was completely silent. The spectators in the fighting ring also held their breaths, afraid to break the silence. The Golden Flame Technique lives up to its name. After a long time, Luo Bingyue's voice sounded. Her voice was as cold as the Heavenly Ice Technique and Ice Sword Technique that she practiced. After that, he turned around and walked down the fighting ring. On her arm, there was a trace of blood on her moon-white long sleeve. The sleeve had been cut by the sword light, and there was a trace of dark red blood on her lotus-like snow-white arm. Just now, when he was fighting with Jun Hanli, he was injured by Jun Hanli's sword light. However, this injury was nothing. It was just some external injuries. Puchi. Frost Sword Technique Level 3. Jun Hanli spat out a mouthful of blood. There were more than 10 wounds on his body. His injuries were much more serious than Luo Bingyue's. Moreover, he had suffered internal injuries. He had reached the peak of Xiantian 9th stage earlier than Luo Bingyue, and his cultivation was a bit deeper. However, Luo Bingyue had already cultivated the heaven-tier martial skill, Frost Sword Arts, to the 3rd level. Your talent is not bad. It's a pity that you shouldn't have come to the Yunshui Kingdom. Luo Bingyue walked down the fighting ring step by step. Her cold voice almost froze the air. Soon, she arrived in front of Lin Yi and the other two. Can you protect him for a lifetime? Is it worth it? You're so beautiful and talented. Are you willing to accept this? Jun Hanli said with an ugly expression. His tone was full of questions. Although he had been injured by Luo Bingyue and looked more serious, he had not lost. However, he was not convinced that Lin Yi, who did not have a martial soul, could make Luo Bingyue stand up for him. His words resonated with countless students and experts of Shengwu College. Luo Bingyue was a super genius and the most beautiful woman in the Yinshui kingdom. Like an ice goddess, she was an otherworldly fairy. She was not someone an ordinary person like Lin Yi could touch. Not to mention Lin Yi, even some super geniuses were not necessarily worthy of Luo Bingyue. Although you are talented, Jun Hanli said, your eyes are not good. You're not his eyes at all. In other words, you are like a monkey in front of him. You have been playing monkey tricks, but you don't know. Luo Bingyue said coldly as she turned around and looked at Jun Hanli in the fighting ring. Lin Yi had canceled the agreement. Yes, it was painful because she had made Lin Yi a joke. Although all this was caused by Lin Yi's low profile, she did not want to see others say that Lin Yi was a good-for-nothing. Luo Bingyue's words shocked countless people. For a moment, everyone's gazes turned towards Lin Yi. This was the first time Luo Bingyue had defended Lin Yi in front of outsiders. Moreover, many people were puzzled by Luo Bingyue's words and thought that Luo Bingyue had misunderstood. Jun Hanli, I have said that you have nothing but the identity of a crown prince. Go back to the Baiyue kingdom and be a carefree prince of the prince alongside king. Lin Yi looked at Jun Hanli in the fighting ring and said indifferently. It could be said that he had seen the battle the most clearly among the countless spectators. Because of his divine will, he could see everything clearly even without using his eyes. In fact, there were many parts of the battle that could not be seen clearly with the naked eye. Luo Bingyue was a few years younger than Jun Hanli and reached the Xiantian realm 9th stage relatively late. However, she had surpassed him and cultivated the 3rd level of the ice sword technique. She was slightly stronger than Jun Hanli. Of course, Jun Hanli still had powerful means. If he were to fight with Jun Hanli, he would only need one sword to severely injure Jun Hanli. When he opened his mouth, everyone's eyes were on him. There were doubts, puzzlement, and disdain in their eyes. Lin Yi, come to the fighting ring if you have the ability. You seem to enjoy being protected by a woman. Jun Hanli was very angry. It was a complete provocation to be called a crown prince in front of so many people. Moreover, it was said by Lin Yi, who was regarded as trash by so many people. This was simply a humiliation. To be honest, I can crush someone like you with one finger. To be honest, you are not qualified to be my opponent. However, for the sake of all the seniors and juniors of Shengwu College, I will give you a chance. As long as you can break my defense, it will be your victory. Lin Yi walked toward the fighting ring step by step. His voice was loud and clear, spreading throughout the fighting ring. For a moment, the students present were shocked by Lin Yi's actions and words. Most of them were curious. This Lin Yi, who did not have a martial soul, really dared to go on the fighting ring against a genius with an emperor physique. Everyone could not help but admire Lin Yi's courage and arrogance. He could crush a genius with an emperor physique with one finger. Even a genius with an emperor physique was not qualified to be his opponent. How arrogant and domineering was this? Was he ignorant or domineering? Brother-in-law, please show mercy. Is the crown prince of the Moon Kingdom, Luo Xing, or looked at Lin Yi walking towards the fighting ring. She could not help but be excited and shouted loudly. She had seen Lin Yi defeat Li Xingchen with one finger with her own eyes. In less than half a month, he had gone from the 1st stage to the 9th stage. How heaven-defying was this? Ever since Lin Yi fought in Luo province, she had not seen Lin Yi truly fight. Even when he was hunting demonic beasts, he did not use his real skills. Now, she hoped to see Lin Yi's powerful strength. Lin Yi, I hope you will not embarrass Shengwu College. You took one of my attacks. I will also take one of yours. Jun Hanli was furious. He was a genius with an emperor physique. Could it be that he could not break the defense of a youth without a martial soul? This was obviously Lin Yi humiliating him. While speaking, he operated the Golden Flame scripture to the extreme. The Golden Flame scripture itself was of the Golden Flame attribute. Its attack power was incomparably terrifying. It was a high-grade heaven-class technique. Even if the spiritual mirror did not die, it would still be seriously injured. Against Lin Yi, it was a piece of cake. It could directly cripple him. Don't show off. You don't have the ability. Lin Yi smiled and stood in the center of the fighting ring, waiting for Jun Hanli to make his move. The difference between the Xiantian 3rd stage and the Xiantian 9th stage was not just a big gap. However, in the face of absolute defense, the Xiantian 9th stage was still Xiantian. As long as it did not exceed the scope of Xiantian, it would be impossible to break Lin Ye's absolute defense. Golden Flame Scripture, Violent Thunder Fist. Jun Hanli listened to Lin Ye's words and was really angry. He knew that if this continued, he would definitely be driven mad by Lin Yi. Without the slightest hesitation, his hands moved and his body flashed strangely. He punched towards Lin Yi. Suddenly, the air was distorted and a sonic boom was heard. His fist even exuded a terrifying, fiery, golden glow. If this punch hit, even a spiritual mirror expert would be seriously injured or even die. So, could Lin Yi really take this punch? This was the question in the hearts of countless people. The distance of 20 meters was covered by Jun Hanli in an instant. With a terrifying power, the fist fiercely bombarded in front of Lin Yi. Just when countless people thought that Lin Yi would be seriously injured and fall to the ground in the next moment, a magical scene appeared. They saw Lin Yi casually stroke with one hand, and a blue Tai Chi diagram light shadow appeared. The Tai Chi diagram light shadow blocked in front of Lin Yi. Jun Hanli's fist also bombarded the Tai Chi diagram light shadow. Boom! With a muffled sound, the fist collided with the seemingly fragile Tai Chi diagram light shadow. The Tai Chi diagram light shadow unexpectedly did not shatter. Instead, it blocked the fist and was unable to move forward. What kind of defense is this? Can a Xiantian stage warrior use such a method? Isn't this a martial skill that only a void refinement stage warrior can use? What magical defense! Jun Hanli's attack could not even break Lin Ye's defense. How strong is Lin Yi? By the way, he doesn't have a martial spirit. How can he be so strong? What a terrifying defense. With such a defense, he is invincible in the same realm. He is a Xiantian Stage 3. A Xiantian Stage 3 can take a full blow from a Xiantian Stage 9. Everyone around the arena was shocked. Not only the Xiantian Stage geniuses, but also the spiritual mirror experts were shocked by Lin Ye's move. No one was not shocked and envious because this move was too magical. You don't have a martial spirit, right? What kind of defensive skill is this? Jun Hanli stared blankly at his fist. His fist on the Tai Chi diagram light shadow was like a punch on cotton. It gave people a sense of powerlessness and could not move forward even an inch. He looked at Lin Yi in shock and asked. He knew that he had been defeated miserably. It was indescribable. Previously, he looked down on Lin Yi and humiliated Lin Yi. Now, he knew that Lin Yi did not put him in his eyes at all. Or, as Luo Bingwe said, he was just a jumping monkey in Lin Ye's eyes. It was a complete joke. His question was also the doubt in the hearts of everyone present. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.